And welcome into the Monday edition of Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Rexrode, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing just super.
Super's good?
I have nothing clever to say.
Super's good.
Super's good.
Keyser, what's going on? How are we doing?
I'm doing good. Fun weekend. Cody Glass, hat trick. First ever multi-goal game. Nashville was rocking this weekend, and hopefully this week as well.
Yep, really fun weekend at Bridgestone Arena. We're going to get, obviously, hot and heavy into the Preds today, who have kept their 8-game winning streak alive. Joe Rexrode was down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where apparently either that morning or before the game, one of the two, they were going over, let's keep these people off the court. Just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case Alabama wins. Let's keep these folks off the court.
I saw your tweet.
Court storming protocol being put in place.
You were like, here's the protocol.
Here's the protocol.
Vols win!
Vols win. Ain't going to be no court storming tonight. What a win
Money.
for Vols. Yes. Money! Heard some of that.
I saw Burt Burlkamp after the game, and I asked him if he stayed calm. But according to you, maybe not. Maybe not so much. You got to love Burt Burlkamp.
A lot of words
call.
I'd use to describe it. Calm. Not one of them.
Yeah. They were very disappointed down there in Alabama. But, spring football this
Such
week.
is life.
Spring
Yes.
football does start this week for Alabama. I'm like, really?
Did you see Saban wandering around in there?
I did not. I mean, he might have been, but I did not see. I did not see Nick or Miss Terry walking around. I will tell you that Coleman Coliseum, and Ryan Shumpert and I found this out after the game by walking around the entire place. They have 2 single bathrooms.
In the whole building?
Well, I mean, in the concourse upstairs, but like, this is event level. 2 single bathrooms.
That's not good.
That is really bad.
How do you even operate that way?
I don't know. It was rough. So, but made it work. So.
Well, what a win for the Vols, 81-74 on the road at Alabama. It wasn't necessarily a pretty game, but a game in which they gutted it out at the end, and they did so without Dalton Knecht taking over. Knecht only had 13 points, 5 of 14. Now, he did hit a couple of big shots down the stretch, but it was not necessarily the Dalton Knecht show, and Zakai Ziegler played well in the game, had some big moments. Meshack was awesome with some hustle plays away from the ball to get the ball defensively, hustle plays to keep possessions alive offensively, and Tennessee goes on the road, and they beat Alabama 81-74. Rexrode, you were there, live and in person. Your takeaways from Tennessee on Saturday.
Yeah, I think the start of the game was Jemiah Meshack. He also hits a big 3 in there right before one of the big plays. A big sequence in the game, hits a 3, then sees, comes diagonally across the court, sees that Sears is trying to push it up to Estrada. And Sears and Estrada are both really good players, and steals that. Then he also has a play where, he just got the middle of the floor open. He goes and makes a play. He gets close to the rim, makes a little mid-range shot. I mean, he's got game, but as a defender, they don't have anybody else like him. He is easily their best option against both Sears and Estrada, and moving forward, whenever they play guards who are really good at penetrating, really good offensively, and not be a hole where opponents can just sag off him. And if he's going to be aggressive offensively along with that defense, he's going to be on the floor. But I thought Josiah James was fantastic too. I mean, he hit probably the shot of the game, that corner 3. Yep. He's playing the 5 a lot of the game because Adu and Awaka both get 2 fouls right away. And just does all the – I mean, even Vescovy, he's like 3 steals in a row early in the second half when it was getting away from them a little bit. It was very much a team win. And, Knecht, like you said, 13. But the thing is, in the late going, the Vols every time, and this is what we're going to see, you're either going to get him the ball in the high post or you're going to pop him off a screen. You're going to give him the ball.
Offense is going through him.
Yeah. And so and the opponent is going to, especially right after a game like Auburn, I don't blame Nate Oates. Double him. Okay. Well, then if he gets it out immediately, then you got an advantage. You got an odd man advantage on the other side of the floor, and the Vols took advantage of it. That's what they have to keep doing. But that means other people have to hit shots, and make decisions. And Adu made really good decisions in the middle of the floor. So, but the bottom line is, you hold Alabama without a field goal for 9 minutes and 3 seconds in that building, that's absurd.
Yeah.
And some of that is Alabama took some bad shots, but just fantastic defense. Championship defense.
Fantastic defense. Alabama shot 9 of 37 for 3. I saw, your tweet at one point. What were they, like 18 of 60 or something like that combined? The two teams.
Which, the big thing there is just how many they were both shooting.
Right.
Bama's going to do that, but Tennessee was like, well, we can shoot as many threes as you can, But, yeah, eventually it got it's an ugly number for them in that building.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
Very uncharacteristic.
Well, and now you've taken care of business if you're Tennessee against Auburn at home, and you've gotten that win with Dalton Knecht going nuts. And we talked about it the whole time. The big game was going to be on the road at Alabama. And could you put yourself in a position to go win that game and have a chance to wrap this thing up and win the SEC regular season title? And that's a gigantic win on the road. You got 2 games left, one at South Carolina, one at home against Kentucky to close out the year. So the job's not done yet, but that's a huge win for Tennessee. Number 1 in their path to a regular season conference championship, and number 2, a gigantic win in terms of their race for a 1 seed on Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of mixed right now. I know Jerry Palm and Shelby Mass, USA Today, they both have the Vols as a 1 right now. Lenardi and some others still have them as a 2. So it's very close, but now you still have 2. You have 2 more quad 1 wins available to you this week at South Carolina, Kentucky at home. If the Vols beat South Carolina on the road, and of course South Carolina beat them, so if not, they're going to get swept by South Carolina, and South Carolina could be the 1 seed in the SEC tournament. They could still potentially share the title if South Carolina wins. But if
by the way, they had a big win against Florida over the weekend too.
They did, and it was a really great comeback. They were in some trouble, but the Vols win Wednesday. That's a share, and that's the 1 seed in the SEC tournament guaranteed, which is great for people who write about the Vols, as it means the noon game on Friday, or 11 a.m. here, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Like the 2 is like the 9:30 game or whatever. But if they win both these games this week, I think that everyone will have them as a 1 in the NCAA going into the SEC tournament.
So a huge win for the Vols. We're going to get back hot and heavy into Tennessee, their win against Alabama, and what the path could look like here for Rick Barnes and company coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll take your thoughts, 615-737-1025, our phone number. In the meantime, Joe, Saturday night, the Nashville Predators hosting the Colorado Avalanche and going for win number 8 in a row. They get it in dominant fashion, 5-1. It was really a great back-and-forth hockey game through 2 periods. And then for the 3rd game in a row, the Predators just came in and slammed the door in the 3rd period. So, look, you had the dominant 3rd period against Ottawa where you outshot them 19-0. And I think some of that was Ottawa and them playing the night before and just not having, 1, the legs, and 2, probably the motivation given the way their season has gone late in that 3rd period. You come out and you play great against Minnesota in the 3rd period as well. And then I thought the Predators just took it to the Avs the other night in the 3rd period. And look, I was at Colorado's practice on Friday, and it's like, I was explaining it to somebody. He's like, when to just continue the show tradition of taking a shot at Marcus Mariota. When you watch Marcus Mariota throw the football, and then you look over there and you watch Tom Brady throw the football, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's how that's supposed to be done. I was at Colorado practice Friday, and I was like, geez, they're just flying around out here. And it wasn't just McKinnon. Like, yeah, they were going. I was like, this is going to be a big test for the Predators tomorrow. And to their credit, through the first 2 periods, they skated with them. They hung with them. McKinnon got loose a couple times, scored on one of them. Saros made a huge save on another breakaway by McKinnon. And in the 3rd period, the Predators were just flat out the better team. And what a win for the Preds. And, of course, what a big night for Cody Glass with a hat trick and the emotions after the game and all those things. It was a huge win for the Preds Saturday night.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. But that is the thing you touched on that I find interesting. What is going on with these 3rd periods? Why is this team all of a sudden, just overwhelming? Maybe that's a little bit too strong, but they're just clearly better than their opponent, whoever it is, lately in the 3rd. Why?
Yeah. It's interesting because it's been their worst period all year. I mean, if you go
They've
by
given up quite a few leads.
strictly goal differential before this stretch here, it's been not great in the third period from the Predators, and they've given up leads, and they've not had, they've not come back in some opportunities when they've had the chance to. But for whatever reason, I mean, number one, you're playing with the lead going into the third period in these games, and you've just been able to close the door. And it's not like they're just sitting back and letting the other team dictate the play and UC Saros is saving their bacon. Like, quite frankly, like Saros had to make a couple of big saves in the third period, but really in Ottawa, Minnesota, and now Colorado, he's not been very busy in the third period. They've spent most of the period with the puck, which I don't know what if there's been a strategic adjustment. I don't know if it's just the simple fact that they're on a heater right now and they're playing really well and the confidence is really high. Whatever it is, they have been unbelievable in the third period the last 3 games, and that's how you win hockey games, is showing up in crunch time and making the big plays when you need it.
And of course, Saros' numbers are absurd.
Yeah,
but like you said, I mean, is that because, is it, how much of it is him? I mean, you have to give most of it to him, but also it seems like maybe everything's kind of coming together, like the whole picture, the whole puzzle is fitting the way Andrew Burnett wants it to fit.
It certainly feels that way right now. And, I mean, the question on that is, how can you sustain that? Like, how long is that going to be the case? But right now, they're playing really well. Like, look, we talked about it heading into the Colorado game. The 7-game winning streak was unbelievably impressive, and you had put yourself in a great spot. You had also beaten 5 out of those 7 teams were teams that were not in a playoff spot. So it's like, okay, it's good, and you'll take it every time, obviously. But how are you going to respond against the Colorado team that, by the way, the 2 games before that, it looked really good and was playing really well. And the Predators, to their credit, they looked like the better team on Saturday. And I'm not under some grand illusion that the Predators are more of a Stanley Cup threat than the Colorado Avalanche are heading into the playoffs this year. But we asked on Friday, if they got there, could you make something interesting? Could you make one of these series interesting? And if they play the way they're playing right now, the answer is yes. You can make a series interesting if you keep playing the way that you're playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, who is it? I mean, you're going to be at a pretty decent talent disadvantage. What's the best case? I mean, seeding scenario for the Preds. I know it's funny that we're switching to that, but
I mean, probably wild card 1.
Yeah, like they're not getting in the top 3.
No, I mean you're 7 points back of Colorado now with that win, so it's not impossible, but it would be
the heater would have to
really stretch out.
So so you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, there could be a number of different teams that you could potentially play. Yeah, is it impossible to think that they could win a playoff series at this point? Well, that would be a huge upset.
Yes, a gigantic upset, no question.
2017.
Yeah, well,
don't bring up 2017.
Better start getting that parade route planned out.
Oh boy. Yeah, we got to go in past Vingan's house, right?
Yeah, we do. We got just an awesome moment on Saturday night at Bridgestone Arena from Cody Glass. We're going to get into that coming up next. First career hat trick for Cody Glass. First career multi-goal game for Cody Glass, which was really cool to watch on Saturday night. We'll get your thoughts on that. Preds extend their winning streak to 8 games. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll take your thoughts on that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3, The Game.
And as Glass tried to set up the veteran defense, but now Glass comes back in with the puck for Colton Sissons. Sissons back, and the score! Cody Glass! Predators take a 1-0 lead. Giving it back, and the shot taken there by Alexander Carrier deflects away. Novak put it down in front to score! Cody Glass, he has 2 tonight. The Predators have a 2-1 lead. Spinning from out high, shot broken up. McCarron got to it. Now here's the long shot at the empty net to score.
There it is. That's the hat trick.
Cody Glass gets the hat trick.
Cody Glass, the hat trick as the Preds beat the Avs 5-1. The Smashville faithful, letting you hear it right now, Cody. We know you've already done 10 interviews, so we'll be quick. How special is this day for you, and what does this mean to you?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It's one thing to score a hat trick, but standing ovation after the game, that's something I'll remember. Yeah. That's something I'll remember forever. It's made me emotional. Pretty emotional guy, but no, it's a special feeling. I never thought I would have that in my life, and I'm incredibly grateful.
What a night for Cody Glass. Saturday night, Preds take down the Avalanche 5-1. The first career hat trick for Cody Glass. First career multi-goal game for Cody Glass, and what a moment after the game as well. So Glass gets the hat trick. He's named the #1 star, which, by the way, I was in charge of the #1 star on Saturday night.
Okay.
And I was asking Jim Ziman after the game. I was like, what would have happened had I voted for Tommy Novak over Cody Glass? Would I have been overruled?
Well, sometimes because that vote goes in a little earlier, right?
It does.
So that's certainly possible. You had him anyway, yeah.
But
possible.
It was possible.
But you can always go back, right? I mean, that's happened, right? Yeah.
But I felt some, retrospectively, some pressure. Put Cody Glass out there.
Yeah, well, good job. Good thing you did.
Good thing I did. He goes on the bench after the game. And first off, really good job by Kara Hammer to kind of let the moment develop, because Cody Glass starts talking in the interview on the bench for the first star. And then the crowd, I was actually in the hallway, so I was in the Colorado room kind of waiting to go in there, and I heard the crowd just going nuts. I was like, what's going on out there? It was loud. And I was like, I guess Cody Glass is out there doing something. I looked up on the TV and I saw kind of the tears coming down his face. I was like, oh, okay, so that's what's going on out there. Went back and watched the whole thing later, and it was really cool. It was one of those, I remember when Pekka got emotional out there, after his 300th win, and, he's obviously been a guy that has left his heart on his sleeve. And we know what Cody Glass has been through this year, a couple of different injuries. It's not been a good year for him in terms of the offensive numbers, certainly not what you were looking for heading into the year. And he, has 2 goals coming into the game Saturday night, ends up with a hat trick. Pretty cool stuff after the game.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff for him. And he has previously been the subject of kind of, emotional. I mean, he's a heart on the sleeve kind of guy who's been through a ton. So a guy who's easy to root for. Does it mean, because we spent some time talking about him this year and among other young guys and what's going on, where is it going? So this is a huge moment for him. What about just where he's trending as a player overall?
Well, look, the most of this year, so he's only played in 34 games. He's had the injury problems. For the most part, it feels like he's been trying to catch a moving train this year, and it just hasn't really been there. I will say, we've talked about this, it's felt like his game has been coming along really for the last month. The last month, he started to play better. It hasn't always resulted in offense, but, even at the start of the road trip, he scores the huge goal in Vegas on a great play, and you're like, okay, Cody Glass starting to come along a little bit. He's technically on the second line. Predators right now, I don't know if they really have a devoted second line. It's with Yakov Trenin and Colton Sissons, so whatever you want to call that. But I thought when he saw that first one go in on Saturday, and the way that, it was a great play by him to get in the zone. Sissons made an unbelievable pass to get the puck to him. And when he saw that go in, it kind of felt like something clicked for him. And he actually had a couple of more looks in the second period where he didn't pull the trigger, where I was like, dude, you got to shoot the puck. And he finally got open in the slot late in the second period to give them that 2-1 lead. And you could see it late in the game. Even when when it was out of control and they were up 4-1, they were trying to get him the puck. And it was before they even pulled the goalie. They were trying to get Glass the puck to get him the hat trick. And he talked about after the game, his teammates wanting it more than he did. They were making a concerted effort to get him the puck. It was really cool to see it go in. I wonder, beyond just the obvious of the great moment for him, it's got to be a gigantic confidence boost. And I think he is a guy that you have seen the lack of confidence hurt him out there at times. And we know what confidence can mean in sports. I wonder if this can be a moment that kind of frees him up a little bit. And look, I don't think Cody Glass is ever going to be, some 25-goal guy in the NHL, but he's certainly a much better player than what he has shown so far this year. And I think we got a glimpse of that Saturday.
Is he ultimately long-term better on the wing, you think?
I think probably so. I think he can play down the middle because I think one thing that we saw from him last year was he became a lot more defensively responsible. I remember there was a night, Edmonton came in here, and he basically, John Hines matched him up with McDavid's line and was like, go. And he did a great job. That whole line did a great job in that game. One of the few times that McDavid and Draisaitl have walked in here and not won.
Not
in
just
recent,
padded their stats like crazy.
In recent memory. So I thought he did a great job in that game, and it kind of showed you, all right, well, he can handle some of these defensive responsibilities. He's not a great playmaker, in my opinion, so I think maybe he is better off on the wing as kind of a finisher that way. But I am really interested to see what this means for him because, like I said, I think he's a guy that has needed a huge confidence boost and to see some pucks go in for him. And now that they have, I wonder what that means for him down the stretch here.
Well, and like you said, look, they have a top line and then they have other lines.
Yeah, that's basically what it is, right?
But what if if he can build on this? Can it look a little bit more like an actual second line? It's not as talented as your, good team second lines, but Sissons has had a very good year too.
Yes.
So, to get a little bit more consistency from another line offensively, obviously the McCarron line's been terrific in their role. But
Novak's playing great right now. Look, everybody's playing great right now.
Right,
that's
exactly.
why you won 8 in a row, right?
Yeah, up and down the lineup, it's like you're getting what you would hope or more from most people.
Exactly. And, how sustainable is it long term? I'm not sure. Look, the Novak, which, by the way, Elliot Friedman was reporting on Saturday night that the Preds are closing in on a deal with him, so it's something to keep your eye on this week. It sounds like they're going to be able to find some sort of deal that works for them on the Novak front. He had an unbelievable goal Saturday night. First off, nice play by Saros to get that thing started. Primary assist from the goal. You don't see that one happen very often. But he kind of, the inside, outside, backhand to forehand deke, and he just went roof over the top. It was a great shot, great play by Tommy Novak. So they just look like a team, and I think Cody Glass was another beneficiary of it Saturday. They look like a team that is just oozing confidence right now. It's like a heat check in basketball, and that's kind of how they're playing right now. And it's fun to watch. It's a lot of fun. That building was awesome Saturday. The 5 o'clock start, the 7-game winning streak heading into it, Colorado, the opponent, and that place was juiced up, ready to go. And then to see what they did after the game for Cody Glass, it kind of felt like one of those Smashville, Bridgestone Arena type moments, and there hadn't been a ton of those lately, and it felt like it.
How's this compared to Vibin?
I think it's right there with Vibin. We need to get some towels going.
I don't know, maybe. I have to get
speaking
of that, you got to speak to Ryan Johansson.
I did. Ryan Johansson, very complimentary of Cody Glass. Ryan Johansson, otherwise not in a very good mood after the game, very complimentary of Cody Glass after the game. So that was good.
How'd he play?
Not a whole lot going on out there.
Yeah, not much happening for Rye Joe.
Not a ton. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Cody Glass with the hat trick on Saturday against Colorado. And the Preds have won 8 games in a row. What have the Predators figured out, and what does it mean moving forward here. The deadline is coming up on Friday, and we're about a month away from the beginning of the Stanley Cup playoffs, a little bit over a month. Can the Predators finish the job and get there, and how much has your view on this team changed? We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
You guys have talked about pulling the rope. What's the biggest attribute that you've seen out of your group during this streak?
Well, I just like our relentlessness. I think we're connected. We're taking away time and space at a high level right now. And that comes from work ethic, that comes from trust, and that comes from, again, being connected, where we're close and we're all kind of pulling the same rope. We understand where we are and we understand what we're doing, and we're having fun doing it. And I think it's been a great run and well-deserved.
That was Andrew Burnett after the game Saturday night. Preds win 5-1 against the Colorado Avalanche. 8 wins in a row. They'll go for 9 tomorrow against the Montreal Canadiens. Buffalo Sabres in town later this week. So 2 teams that are not good teams, not playoff teams. Always makes you a little nervous, I think, as a Predators fan, when you have a streak like this going. You got some teams that you should beat coming into town, but we'll see what happens and if the Predators can make it 9 in a row starting tomorrow against the Canadiens. Taking your thoughts on the Preds, 615-737-1025. So obviously this is a dramatic turnaround. You look at the standings, they're 7 points up on the Blues right now for that last playoff spot, and the Flames as well. Both those teams have 2 games in hand on the Predators. So it's not over. Like, the Predators have not clinched a playoff spot, obviously. They're not, guaranteed to make it here. They have put themselves in a really good spot, and they're at one point the other night were ahead of LA before LA played again. So they're kind of right there in the mix for the wild card 1 spot right now too. How have they been able to completely turn this around? And it was interesting to hear Burnett's answers the other night, because he talked about taking away time and space at a high level. That's I think an underrated part of what they're doing out there. For the most part, they're defending really well. Now, Nathan MacKinnon got loose a couple of times Saturday. And Nathan MacKinnon is going to get loose. I mean, that's what he does. He creates space and gets speed for himself. For the most part, though, over this stretch, I mean, the Minnesota game, I thought they defended really well in that game. Obviously, Ottawa didn't really do anything against the Predators in that game. And then the third period, the Predators, I thought, played their system to a T. They were disruptive in the neutral zone. They got on the counterattack very quickly. I mean, go look at some of the goals they scored in that third period. I mean, it's just attack is what they were doing. And I still, we've talked about this, Joe, I don't know that from a roster perspective that they've got the roster that's a perfect match for Andrew Burnett's system. But, man, are they playing that system at a high level right now?
Yeah. No, they don't, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's going to be probably fun moving forward if you got to upgrade speed, skill, all that. I mean, in whatever system you're in, I think like this roster needs more of that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I know for me, like, I definitely watch the games a little differently after sitting with him, just in terms of like the expectation of, well, I mean, it's not just individuals, but it's a collective expectation, but it requires a lot of, trust. I think there's obviously that, and a lot of aggression when it's like, man, that's kind of risky.
Yeah.
But if you kind of understand, how you fit into the whole picture, and you're willing to play like that, like that's what you do. You erase time and space, and then you create odd man rushes for yourself. And obviously, one thing the Preds, I think I had like a stat in this thing I wrote that was like whatever it was, like 36 odd man rushes in 4 games or something, and they got like 3 shots. So that's where I think the speed and skill upgrades, and you get more offense off of it. Yep. But that's a good number. But the point was that, like, that's a good number of like creating the situations, So they're doing that. Now they're starting to finish.
Well,
and everybody, like we've talked about, up and down the lineup, it's like they all kind of like get it now together.
Well, right now everything's going right. Like
Yeah.
you're scoring during this 8-game stretch. They've scored at least 4 goals in every game. So you're scoring over 4 goals a game right now during the 8-game winning streak, and you're combining your goaltenders playing at an absurd level. So when you're scoring that much and your goalie's playing that well, you're going to win. And that's what the formula has been for the Predators. Right now Saros is playing at like a 960 save percentage over this stretch. So that's going to come down. But the question is, like, okay, it comes down. Is it coming down to what it's been all year of like 905, 906? Or has he figured it out and it's 925, 930 right now? Because that's a huge difference. And if it's that, you're going to be in a good spot if he's playing that well down the stretch here. And, I think the secondary scoring is going to dry up at some point here. But it's been a heck of an 8-game stretch for them. I mean, they're getting contributions from different people every night. And that's how you win this time of year, is different guys stepping up in different games. And they've gotten that. I mean, you could point to, in every one of these 8 games, you can point to a different guy who has contributed offensively, which is good.
Yeah, and that's what great teams have that. And, again, I hate to I'm not trying to bring up 2017, but Zollner, Chuck, and those guys.
Fiddler.
Yeah, Vern Fiddler's out there getting big.
McLeod.
Cody McLeod. My gosh. guy could barely skate like one, and he's down there scoring like a breakaway against the Blues. But there are among these secondary scoring, like Novak is a guy. Okay, well, that's a guy you hope you can count on the rest of the way. Evangelista, some of these guys are guys who, okay, well, that's what you were hoping for this year, right? Some of them, I mean, Glass is an interesting one because it's like you kind of just removed expectations at some point this year, you know? But he's talented.
He is.
It's not like he's incapable. Right.
Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in David. David, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, happy Monday. I appreciate you taking my call. First off, big kudos. Thank you to the team, the Preds, for just finally playing. And I know it's an unfair expectation now since they've won 8 straight that they should keep it up. But I think that's all I've been looking for is just put out the, just try. We went to 2 games over the Christmas break and just didn't see any effort. And that was my biggest frustration. But now, obviously, they're a fun team to watch, whether it's rebuilding or not. They show they have good talent, and we want them to win. If they don't, we get it. But just thank you to the Preds, and thanks for taking my call.
Yep, thanks for the call, David. Appreciate it. I mean, there's no question. And it's interesting. This is deadline week, and I thought a couple weeks ago, this week our shows would be like, all right, so who are they selling off? Like, where's Tommy Novak going? Where's Alex Carrier going? Is UC Saros? Is that deal going to happen? And look, I'm not saying that none of those things could happen. I mean, Jeff Merrick put it out there yesterday that, keep an eye on Carrier because if they can't come to a deal with him, like apparently, and this is not a surprise to me because I've heard this behind the scenes too. Preds really want Spencer Stasny up. They want Stasny. He's ready to play in the NHL, and they want him a part of this. So I would assume that at some point here pretty soon, whether their current group is there or not, Stasny's going to be a part of this at some point. Can they come to an agreement with Carrier? We'll see. That's a long way of me saying, there are still things that could happen this week from a trade standpoint that haven't changed just because they've won 8 games in a row. It does feel like, though, with the fan base, it's fun. It's fun to watch, and I think the fan base is responding to what they're doing out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly changed, but I've had someone on the text line talking about buying. I still, I guess when you say that, it's okay. What are we talking about? If you're talking about someone you can see being part of this, who maybe isn't just a total rent-a-player situation, fine, but standing pat, that seems to be the more likely way to go. But yeah, you still have to look at the RFAs and UFAs and field offers and if you disrupt this a little bit for that, then you do. It's not something like that is not the end of the world. I mean, the Saros thing seems to be toast.
I'm pretty confident that's not happening.
Yeah. But, I continue to contend. Someone on Thursday calls up Trotz and is like, okay, we got to have him. Here's this haul. Then, yes, you are probably going to have some ticked off guys in that room, but you have to think that way.
Yeah, I just – to me, it's always been Jersey that's been the most likely team to do that, and they're
not in position
totally cratered
to do it.
I mean, they totally screwed it up this weekend and lost 2 games, and they're not dead, but I mean they're 64 points. Tampa's at 72, and the Devils can't put together wins right now. So, I wonder they should probably sell this week. To be honest with you, they may not. But I wonder if that's just dead. And the 3 teams that have always come up in the Saros conversation for the most part have been Carolina, New Jersey, and L.A.
Yeah.
Now, people have thrown Edmonton in there too. Edmonton would have to get a little creative with the cap to make it work. And Ken Holland, their GM, said that he's not in the goalie market and feels good about their goalie. So I just don't know I don't know right now if there's going to be an option there.
Yeah, I'm sure there won't be. I'm just saying, from the Trotz perspective.
For sure, yeah.
If it happens to come up, I mean, that to me, and it actually is a good offer, I'm sorry. Got to do it.
Well, I mean, it was, look, I'm here. I hear you. I mean, I would consider it. And the thing is, they got a chance here before the deadline to be on a 10-game heater before the deadline here. And I don't know. It's been a lot of fun, and I don't know what it means. I don't know if the Predators are going to get it. I mean, we've seen this happen at times. It's funny how hockey works. I've seen teams go on a heater like this, and they get in the playoffs, and they're just a juggernaut, and they got all the momentum in the world, and you can't stop them, and they get into the Western Conference Final, make a deep run. I've seen teams that have been 13-2-2 in their last 17 games heading into the playoffs. They get swept in the first round.
Sure.
It's such just a crapshoot by the time the playoffs come around. So what does this mean for the Predators? I have no idea. I know it's a lot of fun to watch right now. And that building on Saturday night was jumping, and it just felt a little different than it's felt all year. I think that the fan base is responding.
So the building Saturday, best since when?
I mean, I don't want to get too caught up in it, but I mean, at least that late season run in 21 when they were really fun to watch and found their way into the playoffs before they took on Carolina.
Vibing.
I think it's probably the best run since.
Of course,
then.
that was they couldn't fill the building, right, back then.
I think they could at some point later.
Late in the year?
Late in
Is
the
that right?
year.
Okay.
But, yeah, it's the best that I've seen since then, for sure. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Preds, their 8-game winning streak coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Preds have won 8 in a row. We're taking your thoughts on the winning streak, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Weston. Weston, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, guys. Couple things here real quick, just with the deadline coming up Friday, and what I think we should do. I think we should go ahead and bring up Scarra and find a place for Ingram to go. And or I may be mixing that up. I apologize.
Yeah.
Blanking it. Yeah, sorry. And then figure out a way to bring Stasny up and get rid of Carrier, because I feel like with Cody Glass playing the way he did Saturday, bringing up a few guys he played with in Milwaukee to kind of reboost that confidence and kind of keep this winning streak going, I think would help out a lot too. So that would be what I would do, and then maybe trade around a few of our prospects and see what we can get for them. Thanks, guys.
Yep, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. I mean, first off, I don't think they're going to be trading prospects. I'd be shocked if the Predators started doing that. Lankinen is interesting because Barry Trotz has talked about, wanting to get Askarov up for some NHL games and that kind of being the next step for him. I don't think there would be a huge trade market for Kevin Lankinen. But if you're a team out there that needs another goalie and you're not willing to spend, big-time assets to go get another goalie, a guy like Lankinen would be interesting. You wouldn't have to give up a ton for him. So that is something to watch this week. I mean, Barry Trotz came on Stilly's show last week and was basically like, Kevin Lankinen is great. When I was in Washington, I needed 2 goalies. So if you want to call me about Kevin Lankinen, call me about Kevin Lankinen.
Also, Tyson Barrie, amazing in the locker room.
Yes.
The best dude in the world. Everybody wants a Tyson Barrie.
So I'm sure if you wanted Kevin Lankinen, Barry Trotz would listen to your phone call. But it's going to be a very interesting – one thing about this week that I wonder, and this would not really be a buy, but you would add to the team. This is also the time of year – Preds have about $8 million in cap space that you can weaponize that a little bit, and you could take on maybe a contract that a contending team doesn't want, and you could get some good draft capital for it in order to do it. We've seen teams do that before. I wonder if Barry Trotz gets in that market this week.
That's a thought too. If you did, let's say you did move Lankinen, what's the like you said, the next step is Askarov getting work here, but he's not going to get obviously a lot more work in Milwaukee. Correct. For the next several weeks. What's the value? What's the trade off there of getting that, being able to get in there and some back to backs or whatever, play up here versus always playing?
I would rather him always play, whether that's down there. I still think he needs to play. Now, look, you can do both. He can play in Milwaukee, and then when you've got a spot start that you want to give to somebody other than Saros, it'd be bad news for Lankinen, but you could call him up, Askarov, have him play,
right, and
then send him back down after that. Look, after the deadline, you can carry 3 goalies. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they want him to play too. And I think there's value for him, for Askarov, in playing, and once they get into the playoffs, seeing what he can do with that too. So, I don't know. You'd have to really give me a good offer for Lankinen in order for me to do it. Because if it's not Lankinen, then Askarov is your backup, which is fine for him. It's good exposure and good experience for him. But he's also not playing as much as I think he probably should be coming down the stretch here.
Of course, if he comes up and he plays really well, looks good, then as you go into the offseason with both of those goalies and you're going to move one of them, well, maybe that helps you a little bit. People see him excelling at this level and have some more. He played well when the first time he got a shot, but a little bit more of that, maybe that helps you a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're moving him.
Josh from White House on the text line. Saturday night was the best game and atmosphere I've ever been to. We took our girls with us. It was their first game. They now have an unrealistic expectation of how a live game feels. But I couldn't have asked for a better first game experience. Also got to meet Cody Glass at Barrel House. Class act, that guy. Congrats to him. This is from Josh from White House. It was a really cool environment. And look, if you're Barry Trotz and you're watching this happen, I would assume that after the Dallas game, where they could be 9-2, after all the U2 stuff, I'm sure that Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette expected some level of a response. There's no way that they could have expected this. And it's just kind of amazing that this is the same team that got beat 9-2, because I thought they were dead in the water after that. And I don't know. What does it say to you about one of the questions I had after the Dallas game was everybody keeps talking about like players not being ready to play and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Where are the veterans? Like, what are they doing? Like, this is why you're supposed to bring them in and to avoid some of this stuff. And whatever they did after that game, and look, Yossi, I think, deserves a lot of credit. Number one, with the way he's played. He's been unbelievable. O'Reilly's playing really well. McDonough quietly is playing great over this stretch here. I think the veterans and what they've done to respond here deserve a lot of credit for getting this thing back on the tracks.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I mean, it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, everybody in this town who followed this team, I was like, okay, well, they're definitely toast, and let's just see what the sell-off looks like. And now we're talking about playoff matchups. 2 weeks, which tells you one thing. One is it's an 82-game season, and we've seen it before. Teams that go on absolute heaters, and then they go through a terrible stretch too. And, I mean, I can't rule anything out with this team, but clearly they figured some things out. As far as I know, there wasn't like some big players-only meeting. There wasn't some big, screaming match or anything like that. I mean, I guess you two, or just the embarrassment of that game, or just things just all of a sudden start to mesh and click, and everybody's playing well.
Well, in retrospect, we may end up looking at the end of this year and them getting beat 9-2 by Dallas may have been the greatest thing to ever happen to them. For whatever reason, I think embarrassment probably is a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you have something like that happen, it forces you to look at yourself and say, man, if we don't bring it to the absolute max every night, we're going to get just our doors blown off. And I think you've seen them play, I don't want to say with reckless abandon, but I mean, they've left it all out there ever since then. And look, if they're going to win, they've got to leave it all out there because, as we've talked about, they're not as talented as some of these other teams. They're also not completely devoid of talent either. And when you've got guys like Yossi and Forsberg and O'Reilly and Saros and McDonough, and they're just leaving it all out there, I mean, they have demonstrated ability in this league to win games. And all those guys playing at a high level right now.
Yeah, and look, you look at the whole picture of everything. I mean, you got to give credit to Barry Trotz. Just go back to last summer. It's kind of like, what? So what is the plan here? But for the most part, look, they've got a team that's overachieved. And I do think that there's some culture that is being, kind of planted this year, and it's a pretty good hockey team at this point. I mean, so the way his vision for this you can't argue with the results overall at this point.
No question. Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Mike in Gallatin. Mike, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. Got the pleasure to go to the Nash Vegas charity event last night, and it's really refreshing to be able to have the guys on this quite a winning streak. That made that night 100 times more fun than I can imagine. I think we've been doing this event for the last few years. I don't exactly remember how it's lined up every year, but hands down, the guys were just, you could see the spirits were extremely high. My thought process is like with the trade deadline coming up, if there's a way to add, but without breaking the bank, like I feel like we've had a whole lot of these trade deadlines where it's like, Boyle finds that like third line scoring veteran or somebody that's like, we're not going to break the bank. I definitely don't want them to go out of their way and do something silly like try to, grab Gensel or something else like that. But man, if there's like a late round draft pick forward that we can take a flyer on or whatever, just to make it look like we're adding, but without like breaking the bank or what we have stored, that's kind of the route that I think I would head down. But man, I like the way the schedule shapes up to maybe keep this train going. So it's been a fun ride.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Mike. Appreciate it. I mean, I'm not totally opposed to that either. Like, if you could get a forward in here for a fourth-round pick, I'd consider it. Like, I'm not going first-round pick. I'm not going second-round pick. When you start to get into third or fourth round, I would be open to it if I were Barry Trotz. I think I'd more be open to, like, what I just threw out there a few minutes ago, though. And I don't know who specifically it would be. I need to go around and look and see what some of these options would be. But we see this from time to time. Like, if you're a team that feels like this is your year and you're right there on the cusp and you're trying to make some additions at the deadline, but you've got a contract that's holding you back a little bit that's expiring after this year and you're trying to create some cap room, could the Predators say, you know what? Well, we'll take that contract off your hands for the rest of the year if you give us a second-round pick. And we've seen that happen from time. So I wonder if Barry Trotz gets involved in something like that.
Yeah, I like that one. And, I just, in terms of like adding to help your team this year play, who's of high interest, who would really be helpful, who might even, be part of the answer long term? Is there anyone?
I mean, you could get yourself involved in the Jake Gensel sweepstakes. I don't know that would be something I would do.
There's been some talk about Gensel.
Yeah, I mean I think he's 29. He's a really good player. Like Jake Gensel's really good. I mean he's gonna probably command a 7-year deal wherever he goes next. I don't know that I would do that, and I'm always wary of guys. Not that I think he's not a good player, because he is a good player, but he's also been playing with Sidney Crosby his entire career, and he's not playing with Sidney Crosby here. So I always kind of like, all right, what's he look like away from Crosby, right? I'd have a little hesitation on that.
Yeah.
So
fair point.
But maybe Barry Trotz looks at him and says, yeah, he'll look fine away from Crosby, and that's our guy. We'll see.
Put him with Big Sexy, as James points out. You got to give Big Sexy some love.
We've gone from trading off everyone to could they get Jake Gensel in here in a long-term deal? 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll get into the Vols, their big win against Alabama coming up next, and what this means for Rick Barnes and company. Is this year different? Is this the year that Rick Barnes and Tennessee puts it together in the NCAA tournament? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. The Vols, with a huge win at Alabama on Saturday, they take down the Crimson Tide 81-74. We've talked about the game. We'll get back into the game itself coming up here in just a few minutes. But I do want to ask the question to you, Joe Rexrode. I think Tennessee fans might be mad after I read this. Jared Stillman, our buddy Stilly on Twitter on Saturday. I usually pick on Rick Barnes in Tennessee, especially this month. But between Connect and Adu, this team might be different. This game is a war. This was his tweet in the middle of the Alabama game the other night.
Okay.
They win the game. Another tweet from Stilly. Tennessee could beat the 90s Bulls at Thompson Bowling Arena, but tonight's win was on the road. It was a big one. Tennessee is for real. Stilly's bought in to Rick Barnes and company. What does that mean for the Vols?
Yeah, he texted me personally, and he said it reminded him of the 09 Louisville team. He said, but not – now that team actually lost to – I was there. I think Jared must have been there too. Lost to Michigan State in the Elite Eight in Indy. But they were loaded. Terrence Williams, Earl Clark, really good team. I mean, a straight-up national title contender. So, for whatever that's worth, he thought it reminded him of that team. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you want that, Vols fans. You got enough that you're already worried. You're already, oh, my gosh, what's going to happen? Are they going to break our hearts again? And now you have Stilly on your bandwagon.
It's a tough place to be. Tough place to be. So they get the win against Alabama, and they do it without Dalton Connect having a huge night on the road. So what does that performance, especially given that Connect didn't go off like he did in the Auburn game right before that, what does that win and the fashion that they did it tell you about this Tennessee team as we approach the SEC tournament?
Well, I think they're I guess they're rounding into form. It's the thing about Tennessee is they're so capable of playing different styles, and that's one thing Rick Barnes talked about after the game Saturday. He's like, like their two bigs get in foul trouble, so they go to Josiah at the 5, and they're small, and they can do that. But also, he says like they can go. They do sometimes Adu Awaka. They can go Adu Awaka, James Connect, and then like Ziegler, and they'd be huge.
Yeah.
So they can play slow, they can play fast. They've played one thing about Tennessee this year, and I think this is one of the things that should make you feel better about them in March if you're a Vols fan, is that intentionally they have changed the tempo offensively. They've gone up. They are one of the faster teams. They have not been that. They have been a very slow tempo offensive team in the past few years. Even when they've had some good offensive teams, but inconsistent, but slow. And the tempo's gone up. They've really prioritized speeding up the game offensively. It hasn't really hurt their defense. They have elite numbers on both sides of the ball. So this last week told me, one, Dalton Connect, the Auburn performance was like insane. It was absolutely superstar. That's a Wooden Naismith, certainly SEC Player of the Year level performance. And it was one of the Rick Barnes says one of the best things he's been a part of. That's a bold statement. That's a dude who's been coaching, a head coach for almost 40 years.
Yeah,
has had Kevin Durant among his great players. So, but then Alabama, you knew, and Connect really was kind of off from the start. He's just missing some shots he normally makes, taking a couple bad ones here and there, foul trouble, and then they're doubling him. And so Tennessee still wins in that place with that going on. But Connect is still going to be central to why. You think back to 2 years ago, Kennedy Chandler was starting to become a really, really good player, and he was destroying Michigan in that NCAA game. And then they zoned, and they said, he's not beating us, so they got these other guys who have shot well all year and all that stuff, but they're going to beat us. Well, they had wide open threes. They didn't make a single big shot late in that game. And that still may be the case this year. It's still the worry is that a team is going to say, Dalton's not beating us, someone else beat us.
Yeah.
But I think Stilly has a point there with Adu is also the best 5 that Barnes has had. He didn't really play that well the other night, I didn't think. He kind of got pushed around, and he was kind of out of the game. Sometimes that happens. You get those 2 fouls, you're kind of out of it. But late in the game, all of a sudden, he's getting big defensive boards, and he's making the right play offensively. He gets the huge three-point play, or maybe he missed the free throw, but three-point play opportunity. That's one of the big differences, is now it doesn't have to just be a three from Vescovy or James, It can be, but they have a lot of guys that can hurt you. Jordan Gainey kept them alive in the first half going to the rim. So I'm telling you basically that they're going to win the national championship. I mean, it all adds up to a word salad that I should have just said they're probably going to win the Natty.
Well, the numbers are, let's just say the last 4 years. So before this season, they averaged 67 points per game in 1920. They scored 71.9 in 2021. And I mean 2020/2021, not the year 2021. The year after that, they scored 73.5. Last year, they were at 70.8. This year, they're at 80.7. So you're talking about over a 10-point per game difference from last year to this year in terms of what they're scoring. Now, obviously, Connect is a huge part of that, but they're certainly, I mean, they're a better offensive team than they are. This is the best offensive team that they've been since, Schofield and Williams and those guys when they were scoring 82 points a game with that team. You combine that with a defense that is still really, really good. I mean, it feels like the best overall collection of talent / the usage of the talent that we've seen under Rick Barnes. Does that mean that this is the year they break through to the Final Four? I don't know. I mean, it comes down to how you play in crunch time, but I understand that there is going to be, when we get through this and get through the regular season here, and you get through the tournament in the SEC, once the NCAA tournament begins, the conversation around this team is going to be like, all right, can they not choke? Like, can they get through this without choking in the NCAA tournament? And I get it. I really do. Trust me. It does feel like this team is well built, probably as well built as they've ever been to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. And I know it kind of feels like we have that conversation on a yearly basis, but this one does feel a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, that team was good enough. That team at its best had a real chance. They were a 3 seed, right? 3 seed or 2 seed? 3 seed. 3 seed. Had a real chance. And, again, like I said, they just those guys came up small, shooting the ball, like clean looks, and like you have to hit those. But this team is absolutely better. This is Rick Barnes' best team at Tennessee, and I would submit. Look, I didn't watch the Ernie and Birdie teams, but I'd submit that this is probably the best, could potentially be the best team Tennessee has ever had. But look, the greatness of the NCAA tournament is that once you get, even if you're a 1 seed, once you get to the second round, you can absolutely lose that game. I mean, that's part of why it's great, right? So some of it is just that sometimes you just get beat in that tournament. I don't even know what, like the Florida Atlantic game last year, it was the offense completely went dried up. But let's also remember this with the Vols. Zakai Ziegler is also one of the best point guards in college basketball. Right. He flat out is. He has rebounded so well from the ACL. You think about early in the season, he was playing, but he wasn't really. I mean, he didn't shoot well the other night, but he's one of the best point guards in college basketball. Let's not forget, last year going to the Sweet 16, they didn't have him. And they've had him for 2 NCAA games when he was a freshman, and it was like, wow, what a great story, this little guy, and he's helping out, and yay. I mean, he is a junior point guard, and he's one of the best in the country. And that's another thing that you have to take into account. Kennedy Chandler even was a tremendous talent, but to me, they still have a better floor general now than they've had since probably Jordan Bone in 2019 with that team. I mean, everybody's old. Like, this team is old across the board. The only, young guy they have is Awaka as a sophomore. Everybody else is a junior or later, and then right. Vescovy and James are, 38 years old. Connect, whatever he is, 23, 24. So it's a talent, experience, cohesion, size, shooting. They've got everything.
Tennessee gets the huge win against Alabama on Saturday. Does this team feel different? Is this the one that breaks through for Rick Barnes and company once the NCAA tournament comes around and maybe punches their ticket to the Final Four? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Tune into 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow as MTSU basketball takes on Liberty at home. Pregame at 5:30, tip-off at 6 o'clock with coverage also available on the 93.3 Classic Hits app and at 93.3classichits.com. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, broadcasting live from our Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Tennessee takes down Alabama on Saturday, a big step towards a regular season SEC title for Tennessee to get that win on the road. They've got South Carolina on the road and Kentucky at home to close out the regular season. So 2 huge games coming up for Tennessee to close out the regular season. Here we're taking your thoughts on the Vols. Michael on the text line says, the Alabama game, a perfect example of what Tennessee needs to succeed in March. Offensive production from guys other than Connect. But can they do that for 5 or 6 games in a row come tournament time? And that is a big question. Now, also, I mean, to me, Joe, if they're going to make a deep run, there's probably going to have to be a couple of games in there where Connect takes over.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like the Auburn game, but, 28 from Connect, 32 from Connect. They're going to need a couple of breakout performances from him if they're going to make a deep run.
Yeah, I think you saw the formula this last week. I mean, they were in desperation against Auburn, down 8. I mean, Janai Brooms is dominating them. And they basically they said, Dalton, put the cape on, and he did. And, I mean, Auburn tried. I mean, at one point, Auburn actually accidentally tripled him, I mean, they were trying to stop him and take the ball out of his hands, but he's hitting everything. So, yeah, they're going to need some games where, so early in the game, they're just running their offense, and they're getting him shots, they're getting other people's shots. They're going to need some games where he comes right out and he's hot, right away and starts building that. Because he just wasn't against Alabama. And so, I mean, really, Tennessee could have been blowing Alabama out at halftime in that game, and they were down, which was stunning to me because they outplayed them pretty badly. So, yeah, 5 or 6 games, for sure. That's a great question. But it's not going to always – he is going to have some huge games in there for sure. Carson said he'd take the 2019 William Schofield team over this. I love that team. Great team. But, again, the 18-19 team actually had really bad defensive numbers, and you saw it in the tournament. I mean, Iowa and Purdue both just went nuts, and some of it was just hitting deep shots. I mean, the Purdue game in particular.
Yep.
Ryan Klein just from 28 over and over. Like, what are you supposed to do? But that wasn't a great defensive team. It's really of all these teams, the one that wasn't a great defensive team or even really good. And this team, I mean, if you match this team up with that team, I'm taking this team at most places. And Grant Williams, as great as he was, he's not what Dalton Connect is. Dalton Connect is a lottery pick who can take over a game offensively. Grant Williams, not quite that.
Jason from Mount Juliet says, this team does feel different in one regard. When they get down by double digits, they ratchet up the aggressiveness on defense and pound the paint, get right back in it. They have the resiliency to fight back, and they do it against good teams. This is from Jason from Mount Juliet on the text line.
Yeah, exactly. Like and that's the thing. We'll see. I mean, we're going to see in one of these games. They're going to get in some dicey situations. I mean, you don't expect it in the first game, whether they're a 1 or a 2. They're going to be one of those two things. You expect them to handle a 15 or 16. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but you expect it.
Man, if that happens this year.
Yeah. How about that, huh?
Boy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, too. It's like, I mean, think about that with Virginia. In fact, I remember I was in Dallas with the Vols in 2018 when that happened. And it was like, at that point, it's like, yeah, I mean, Tony Bennett, you may as well just – and then, of course, the next year they win it all, But, yeah, this is not the team for that to happen. That would be devastating. Yeah, we'll see, but I do think that with, like, James, Vescovy, and those guys, they've been through all this stuff, And so I do think that 2 years ago, we talked about the time, I think those guys had a lot of pressure. They felt a lot of pressure to do this for Rick Barnes. And I don't think it helped them. I really don't. And that's something that you gotta get over that stuff. But those guys have been through so many ups and downs, those two in particular, James and Vescovy. I just feel like this year I think they're going to play well. I think they're going to play well in the tournament. And if they do, if you go through Tennessee and their losses this year, there are two things that happen. One, they score less than 70 points. It's basically like if Tennessee gets to 70 or above, they're going to win. They don't want grinding games, even though their defensive numbers are great. They don't want those games. They want to play an up-tempo style, And if their offense gets to 70, they're going to win. And also in those losses, it's almost guaranteed those two guys do almost nothing offensively. You just got to get a little bit from them. They didn't have huge games, but James has 11 points and 13 rebounds. Vescovy, I don't have it in front of me. He might have had like 5-7 points. That's fine. And then everything else they do defensively and all that stuff, just enough chip in and involvement. And they're going to be both of them in some moments where they have wide open shots in this month, and they got to hit some of them. But I think they're ready to do that. I really do. The weight of the world is not on them like it was because of Dalton Knecht.
Well, the thing is, Knecht can create his own shot. So, I mean, he's going to get doubled, and we saw that on Saturday night some. Number one, I thought he did a good job of, for the most part, making the right play when that did happen. And, I mean, at some point, it's going to come down to trusting your teammates to hit open shots when you find them. I also think, look, the great players in college basketball, they get doubled a lot. They still get through it, and they go score. That's what they do. And, Knecht has shown that he can do that. I mean, you can double him. Sometimes he beats the double, and that's what your great players do, and that's an element that they've not had that level. I agree. Like, Schofield was great. Grant Williams was great. That team was really good. But nobody could create their own shot like Knecht can, and he could do it in a variety of different ways. And, that doesn't guarantee anything, but it is, I think, a weapon that they just haven't had anybody quite like him heading into a tournament before.
And there are I mean, look, he's got range out to like 26 feet, plus he's really good at the mid-range, high post up. And when he gets going downhill, I mean, he's 6'8" and super athletic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why he's going very high in the NBA draft. I don't know if he's going to be the top college player. That's what Jimmy Dice keeps saying now. He's going to be the top college player. Dillingham is interesting to me for Kentucky. I mean, we'll see. But he's probably a top 10 pick. And, I mean, he's the most talented player Tennessee's had since Allen Houston when they had terrible teams that didn't matter.
By the way, that game's setting up to be interesting at the end of the year, Tennessee-Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky gave up 102 points.
I'm in, baby.
And they still won. What was it, 110 to 102, something like that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm in.
Could be some fireworks.
Yeah, and it could be. Kentucky still has a chance possibly to play for the SEC title, but that's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, that's the thing. The SEC, not only is it good, but it's like, I mean, this is up. You always complain about these 58, 55 college basketball. SEC's not doing that stuff this year.
Well, that's fine with me.
Yeah,
I'm glad I'm complaining about it. This is like the tight ends a couple years ago when I was calling out every tight end in the state. And then they all started to play well after that. I take credit for the SEC becoming a really fun and entertaining scoring league this year.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Princeton Fant, catch the ball. Now Princeton Fant scoring 10 touchdowns on the ground for Tennessee that year.
Like, Stilly's the one who always is like, because I said this happened. Like, no, there's no way. But actually, you were the one with the power.
Austin Hooper, what happened to you? And Austin Hooper starts making plays.
That's right.
All I had to do was just whine about college basketball, and now it's very entertaining.
It is. It is. I mean, if you like defense, sometimes you watch Kentucky, you're like, dude, it's a ball screen. Go over there. No, you don't just let them go. No, what? What do you? But my gosh, I can't believe
they gave up 102 points to Arkansas.
Yeah,
and won,
and they had to have a late surge to win. I mean, but they could go into Knoxville Saturday and win. I mean, they are loaded with skill.
You going
Big
Saturday?
Z? I am going.
Oh boy,
I know. I'm all on the Vols, man. I'm on the Vols train all the way. Looking forward to LA in about 3 weeks.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll take more of your thoughts on Tennessee basketball, their big win against Alabama. We'll get to some quick thoughts on the NFL Combine as well. The Rob Rant coming up at 7:45. Corey Curtis from News 2 at 8 o'clock. Well, I could go on tight ends.
I'm looking forward to the Rob Rant.
Yeah, I am too. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Preds fans, don't miss this Wednesday night Smashville live show at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue, starting at 6 o'clock. See your Preds star players up close and personal, plus your chance for autographs and pictures as well. This week's guests are Alex Carrier and Jeremy Lauzon. Smashville Live brought to you by the Black Abbey Brewing Company and ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Rob Rant coming up at 7:45. Corey Curtis from News 2 at 8 o'clock. I was watching, highlights are probably the wrong word, but I was watching some clips over the weekend, Joe, from the NFL Combine.
Uh-huh.
And I was scrolling through TikTok, and it came like this, I guess the NFL put it out there, and it came across my screen. It was like, which quarterback do you think threw the hardest at the NFL Combine? And it kept throwing, the drill where they
oh, come on, there's no question.
They take the step back and they throw it up against the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, guys, I think I know who's going to win this.
Yeah, it's an easy
and
one.
It was Joe Milton who won, who threw the ball the hardest. 62 miles an hour was the official clock.
Didn't
for Joe Milton.
Devin Leary had 61, right?
Devin Leary had 60. McCarthy had 61.
Ah, okay. I think I saw that same one.
And I still, you watch Milton throw it, and you're like, yeah, I think you could throw a little harder than that. Like it felt like he threw about 75% effort.
I think maybe he took it easy on everybody else. He also I think he had a 78 yard?
Yeah, 78
yard completion. Yeah. Yeah. Because I saw made a big deal about McCarthy. He had like a 60-yard completion, which, by the way, the receiver had to pull up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Milton, how about 78?
And just slung it
in your eye right here.
Well, look, in all seriousness for him, I don't know what it's going to mean for his draft status. I've seen some mock drafts that have him going, 6th round, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I would assume that he probably helped himself, given the way. Look, when you throw it as far as he did, and he didn't have any egregious misses from what I saw. So I would assume that Milton probably helped himself at the NFL Combine.
Yeah.
And we'll see what that means towards where he's going to get drafted. Nobody's drafting him to be their starting quarterback, but as a developmental piece, I'm sure somebody somewhere along the way here is going to be intrigued by him with the arm strength.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm sure he helped himself in the interviews. He'll be on a team. He'll get drafted. What was our?
If it's later than the 5th round,
you win.
I win.
Yeah. Okay. So
another lunch on the line.
Stupid of me. No, I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe he helped himself up to the 5th round. All he's got to do is be the
have.
last pick of the 5th round, and you win.
Yeah, he might have. I could see him. Honestly, I could even see him as high as a 4th. But yeah, we'll see. I just think the film last year, isn't going to help him, and just the consistent accuracy piece of this is tough. And look, this is like the offense until someone, and I think Hendon Hooker can be that guy at some point. But that's another thing too. He got drafted by a team who just made the NFC title game, and now is probably going to extend their guy. So it's it might be a bit, but this offense, Heupel needs someone to come in the NFL and be good. I think it'll happen, but Milton's not that guy.
Xavier Worthy set the NFL Combine record of the 4.21 40-yard dash. Wide receiver. We've talked about options. We've talked about the Titans needing to get faster at wide receiver. That would qualify as getting faster at wide receiver if Worthy ends up being the guy. A lot of talk about him coming off this weekend.
Yeah, no, that's a heck of a number, man. 4.21, and it's not like he's tiny. What does that do for his draft stock? Some of the other testing, is also really important, and we totally focus in on the 40, but still, that's a whoa number.
Yeah, it's largely the NFL Combine stuff. I'm always super hesitant to even talk about it because I just don't care, and a lot of times it doesn't translate to what we see on the field. I'm sure A.J. Brown's. I have to go look at what A.J. Brown's 40 was, but I can guarantee you it wasn't 4.3. A.J. Brown runs pretty well out there.
Yeah,
I think
it's
going to work
out
out
okay.
4 or
5 something.
Yeah, I think it's going to work out okay. The play speed sometimes is a little bit different than what you're doing at the 40-yard dash.
No doubt.
I do pay attention to 4.21. That's pretty good speed. There is a certain threshold where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that guy can run.
Yeah, if it's just you're going to get behind people. No matter what. It is hard to. yeah, it's just when it's that good. And the thing is, if you watch him at Texas, it's not like he didn't look fast when he's playing football too. So now the receiver, I mean, there's a lot of we focus in on the top 3 guys, but there are a lot of receivers in this draft who are very enticing, I would say. So if it does end up going OT, with the first pick, the Titans are going to with their second pick if that's the way they go. I would think they would have some very good options available to them.
So the official beginning of NFL free agency is next Wednesday, March 13th. There's the legal tampering period that takes place before then, so there will be deals that are made that are unofficial before next Wednesday. But next Wednesday is the official beginning of free agency at 3 p.m., which means, Joe, that for some of these quarterbacks, i.e. Justin Fields this week, like you're probably going to see a move this week at some point or over the weekend early in the next week. If it's going to be Caleb Williams that's drafted number 1 by the Bears or Drake May or whoever, if they're taking a quarterback, I would assume this week before free agency really sets in is when some of these deals around the league start to get put in motion. It's going to be an interesting time here with some of the quarterback movement.
Well, it is. So like Diana Rossini, who, by the way, hung out with her some last week, and I'm exhausted thinking about like her job. I mean, like, man, it is like just the phone does not stop ever. But
is she doing stuff now? I thought her only source was Vrabel.
Yeah, well, it's all the stuff on all these teams. It's all Vrabel telling her stuff.
Vrabel? Okay.
Yeah, telling her stuff about the Raiders.
Well, that's good. I'm glad he's busy.
I know it's good. I heard he was in Indy with a fake mustache, but I couldn't confirm that. But she has a story about the QB market kind of being soft for Justin Fields right now. The thing is, I do think that like if Cousins is really entertaining leaving Minnesota,
yeah,
that kind of holds it up, right?
I would think so.
I mean, it's like the Falcons, like does Cousins have interest in the Falcons? He loves that offense for sure. They've got some weapons. I mean, you could make the case. Whose future do you like better, the Falcons or the Vikings right now in the next couple years? What team has a better future, better roster outlook?
Well, I would go Falcons from a couple of different standpoints. Number one, I like their overall young pieces a little bit better. Like, obviously, Minnesota has Justin Jefferson, and that's great.
Yeah.
I like the young pieces a little bit better. I like the division better,
and Addison.
Too.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Lions are good. Packers have Jordan Love and the youngest roster in the league. Like, I think the path is better with Atlanta right now.
So, because to me, I've always kind of looked at Atlanta as a real possibility for Fields. But I mean, if you're the Falcons and you look at that, I mean, Justin Fields. I mean, I think Justin Fields is going to be good, but it's just hard for me right now to sit here and say he's going to be great. And he's not as good right now as Kirk Cousins. So if you're the Falcons, you probably
polar opposite players, but you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but ultimately, the more valued thing is, again, balls out fast, balls in the right spot over and over and over again, and that's what he is. So I guess if I was the Falcons, I'd probably be more interested in Cousins. I don't know. I mean, it's also kind of I mean, what you think of Fields and how you're approaching it, what you think the timeline is. But in the NFL, the timeline's never long, right? It's just like you really are like, what's the next couple of years? Right. How do we get somewhere in the next couple of years?
Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, man. It's weird. As you were talking about that 40 and not paying attention to it, Robby, I always heard the term football speed growing up. Do you ever hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, dude got a good football speed. That's what AJ had. That's a lot of these dudes, man. Like, you look at the record that was just broken. John Ross has been out of the league for like 3 years, man. He made one contract. He stayed hurt, and like that's the thing with those fast guys too. Like if anything gets in the way of them, it's over, man. Like I think we got like super lucky hitting on Chris Johnson, but I even remember getting like super pissed when they made that pick. Like just a fast running back, like that sucks. Like we already had a running back at the time, so I don't know, dude. Like I don't put a whole lot of stock into the 40 either. You're right. Like when it's somebody, especially when your team's as slow as our team is right now, you're like, maybe you'll look a little, but I don't put a ton of stock into the 40, man.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Adam. I mean, generally I'm with him, and the John Ross example is a great example of
someone texted John Ross.
It takes more than just a fast 40 time to be an effective player in the league, and there's no question. Like you got to be able to get open, you got to be able to run routes efficiently, you got to be able to do a lot of things if you're a wide receiver to be an effective player. I mean, I do think it helps when you look around and you say, "Oh, 4-2-1, yeah, we'll take that." I mean, Chris Johnson's another good example. You're right, like they took him in the first round, and they probably should not have taken a running back in the first round that year, but he ran a 4.24 at the combine. And then you watch him play, and you talk about football speed. That's an example where the track speed of what you see in the 40 and the football speed totally matched up, and he just ran away from people out there. And that's your hope. Like when you talk about getting faster, you're hoping the football speed and the speed that you see in some of these drills adds up and makes and the math kind of equals out there.
Yeah, I just went to NFL kind of like fastest 40 times of all time. Like Fabian Washington, Jacoby Ford, J.J. Nelson, Jalen Myrick, Calico, the 4.27 baby. Stanford.
When that guy's hamstrings were attached to his body, he could run.
Yeah.
Too often they were dangling off the body.
Stanford Route.
Sure.
Goodwin, Marquise Goodwin, Jerome Mathis. It's Dry Archer. Don't remember him. Kent State running back. There you go. You got Chris Johnson, and then you got John Ross is a 4.22. I was sure John Ross was going to be a superstar, man. Heck, he was awesome at Washington too. He also wasn't very big, and he was hurt. And it's far from the one testing superhero of recent years that actually worked out. It was Metcalf.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
But
and he wasn't that fast.
Right. But for his size, it was absurd.
He's really fast.
I still think that Tavondre Sweat running a 5.2 at 366. That still blows my mind more than what Worthy did.
I mean, I still think one of the most impressive plays I've ever seen in an actual football game was when Metcalf chased down Budda Baker on the interception return. It was unbelievable to watch him run that whole play. It's like, geez, look at that guy. It's like Superman out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's so the whole is the combine over? Is it over now?
I don't know. Is it?
Like, they still have stuff going on? They got to be done now, right? Are they done? TD, are you still out there?
Saw all these people still at the combine over the weekend. I was like, go home. Leave. Save yourself. Get out of there.
How long are they going to make us wait?
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for the Rob Rant. You can check it out every morning at 7:45, either the Rob Rant or the Rex Rant. We'll do that next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Don't make me angry.
Sometimes you have to tell someone to pound sand.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
This is the Rob Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
You're 100% incorrect.
It doesn't matter what you think.
You're walking around with mints loose in your pocket, handing them to people
The jeans
like it's
were
candy.
clean. Wow.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rob Rant here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check it out every morning at 7:45. The Rex Rant, the Rob Rant. I have no mint talk today. There's no mints, either wrapped or unwrapped.
Please let's forget that ever happened.
People still texting me about that.
Great.
People were talking about that in the press room on Saturday at Rexrode Arena.
Wonderful. I was down in Alabama
Like
just handing them out all over the place. Come on, folks.
So you really do that?
I got
I guess so.
Got them on my jacket. Mints?
Anybody need any mints? Got you covered. So I got to pick on our, I was going to say he's our good friend. I don't think we've had him on the show yet. Buccigross, John Buccigross from ESPN.
Uh-oh. What do you do?
He does a really good job, obviously on SportsCenter, basically my entire life growing up watching Buccigross on SportsCenter. Now he's a part of ESPN's hockey coverage, so does play-by-play, does some of their studio stuff with them, and does a really good job, really passionate about hockey, all those things. So I saw his tweet yesterday. He said, I think we have our 16 playoff teams. Don't see anyone climbing the ladder. Time for a million trades. Let's go. So my first thought was, okay, well, Buccigross is a believer in the Preds. He believes they're getting in the playoffs. And then Buccigross follows it up with this. Unquestionably, the playoffs in the NHL should be expanded. It's good for business. 4 of 6 teams used to make the playoffs. Eventually 16 of 21. Now it's 16 of 32. And I saw that yesterday, and my first thought was, oh, my God, can we stop expanding all these playoffs? One for the college football playoffs. And by the way, not just to harp on Buccigross because that's where I saw it. This is not a John Buccigross invention. There is a thought that the NHL is going to expand the playoffs at some point. And I'm fully aware that whether you're talking about the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, whatever, that money is ultimately the driving force behind most of the decisions that get made. What we can't have happen as someone who is just purely a sports fan, I understand that money makes the world go round and money is what you're looking for when you're these leagues. We cannot get to the point as a nation, as sports leagues in this nation, where we allow it to be the only thing that we make our decisions on. Making the playoffs in professional sports should be some level of an accomplishment, and you already have half the league making it. 16 of 32 teams, and he's right. I mean, it used to be a lot worse, which is, by the way, why I think they're going to expand.
4 of 6.
Come
on,
man.
Come on.
It is kind of is what it is at that point. But we have got the playoffs should mean something. Like you making the playoffs in professional sports should be an accomplishment. And look, the hockey playoffs are great, and if you expanded it, would there be a team at some point that was like the 20th team to qualify for the playoffs that ended up going on a crazy run and getting to the cup final or winning the cup? Yeah, probably. Like it would probably happen at some point because for some reason in this sport it happens, and in most other sports it doesn't. So there is that to consider. But I hate the idea of expanding the NHL playoffs. Leave it at 16. Leave it the way it is. Let's hold on to the playoffs and making the playoffs actually meaning something and having some level of meaning to the regular season. Because I like if you expanded to 20, and some people are talking about 24, which I just think is absurd. If 24 out of 32 teams make the playoffs, like if 24 teams make the playoffs, why are you even playing? Like, why are you playing the regular season?
Yeah, just make it a big tournament.
Just make it some gigantic tournament. So I saw this yesterday from Buccigross, and the term that he used, unquestionably, the playoffs should be expanded. No, I question very much that the playoffs should be expanded. Let's avoid this at all costs, and not let money be the only driving factor when we're making decisions in sports, please.
Awful. Hate it. I mean, the NBA, that playing stuff is stupid. So basically, I guess the NBA is, 20 of 30 now, right?
When you factor in the play-in, yeah. Which
so 20 of 30 have – yeah, no, I hate it too. Why would you go more – I mean, really, it should – like less than half of your league should make the playoffs, right?
I agree.
I mean, so the NFL has gotten it to 14 of 32.
Which I think is a good number.
I mean,
you'd rather
I
be
like
12.
12.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. And I mean, the NCAA tournament expansion stuff it's like a daily thing where I even think about it. I get so angry about this stuff. Joe Lunardi saying, well, it's inevitable, so here's a great plan for 80. No. But I'm with you. I don't – it's just so watered down, and it's not any kind of an achievement. At some point, then you're just playing the regular season. I mean, it's just like the trash teams and everybody else is in the playoffs. No,
and I hope that the people in charge of these leagues are smart enough to recognize that whatever the gain is, kind of in your short-sighted vision money-wise, hurts the game long-term. Like if I would be focusing on ways to get people more interested in your regular season if you're the NHL, right? Like how do we spice up the regular season to get people more interested that way? Like to me, if you expanded to 20, like it makes the regular season less entertaining because you know that 20 teams out of 32 are making the playoffs. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be 20, maybe it would be 18, but still, like I think 16 is the perfect number. I think I'm with you. Like I think less than half the league should make the playoffs. But if you want to be exactly half, that's fine. Go be exactly half of the league. But I feel like too often, and it's really bad in college sports right now, which we've talked about. Money is the only thing that's driving it. It's money, 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 and that's why they're going straight from 12 to 14, and they're not going to stop at 14. They're going to keep going, and it's going to expand because everybody wants as much money as they can possibly get. As pro sports, like I realize if you're Gary Bettman, if you're Adam Silver, Roger Goodell, I mean, you're trying to make as much money as you possibly can, and all those things have to factor in. But at some point, like you also have to think about it's your responsibility as commissioners of these leagues, as owners of these leagues, to also be caretakers of the sport and to make sure that the sport is in good hands moving forward. And that's not just financially. That's making the right decisions for the long-term benefit of your game. And I feel like this would be in direct opposition to that.
Yeah, I mean, so we're in a city where it's been basically the last few years like the Preds flirting with getting in or not, and they've been right around that cut line. And I know that sometimes that has to do with like where you came from. So they were at a certain point, expectations got higher, the fan base grew, and then it's sort of a struggle. So it's different if you're like a young team on the rise, but for the most part, it's kind of meh, right? About even getting into the playoffs with some of these teams that they've had recently. So then take it down further, to the team, how the quality of the team that's in as the 10th team on the West or the 10th team in the East. It's just bad. Just like the NCAA tournament, they think of all these Power 5 huge fan base, Florida State and NC State and blah, blah, blah. They hate those teams. Like Michigan State fans hate their team right now. They're getting the tournament. They hate their team. They don't care. They don't want to. So if your team is crappy, now you can make the playoffs. First of all, it means less and less because you have it's so watered down, and it's like there's no excitement generated because it's like you don't like the team. They're not good. Like playoff teams should be good.
Agreed.
You can't be all good if you keep expanding it.
Well, again, like the NHL is a little different. Like I think part of what makes the play-in tournament to me so stupid in the NBA is that those teams never win anyway. Like outside of the Miami Heat last year, who were the 8th seed, who were hurt all year, and
that's
got
the
healthy
only scenario.
by the time the playoffs
Right. Yeah.
came around, and they were way better than a typical 8 seed. In the NBA, it never happens. Like your lower seeds never get to like the conference final or the NBA finals. It does happen more in the NHL, as we've seen here in Nashville. So, like I said, I have no doubt that at some point if they expanded to 20 teams with like the 19th or 20th team that made the playoffs make a deep run at some point, yeah, probably so. That still doesn't mean that you should do it.
No.
Like there has to be some level of reward for the regular season and it meaning something and making the playoffs.
And maybe even in that tournament, you get down to that. I mean, it depends on the year, but I think for the most part, you wouldn't see much happening.
Probably not. I mean, Look, the Wings made the playoffs 25 straight years from 83 to 2016. That's got to mean something, right? Like, and look, even that, like the league expanded twice, actually more than like 3 or 4 times during that stretch. So, I mean, the playoffs, it started out as an easier thing to do to make the playoffs, and then by the end of that streak, it was up to 30 teams at the time. So
I actually didn't realize it was 16 to 21 is absurd. I didn't realize it was ever that.
Yeah.
God.
It's not good. So let's just
That's what we're
avoid
trying
this.
to get back to. No, you don't want to.
Let's avoid that. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Corey Curtis from News 2. We'll get his thoughts on the Predators' 8-game winning streak, his takeaways from the Titans brass at the NFL Combine, and a whole lot more. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. And we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend Corey Curtis from News 2. Corey, good morning. How are you?
You're welcome. That's all I've got to say.
We appreciate it. Rexrode's back with us this week, though, so our little bonding moment that we had last week is gone. Rexrode's ruined it.
He's kind of ugly,
though. It was the best Monday show ever.
Yeah, I asked Corey in India. I'm like, how'd it go? He's like, well, I mean, I was amazing. Okay, I believe you.
As it typically
By
goes.
the way, did you guys see that Kung Fu Panda 4 comes out this weekend?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a Kung Fu Panda 3.
Well, you've missed
Actually,
out, my
I thought
man.
this was
And let me tell you, you have a baby. Your time is coming.
Oh, I'm well aware. Oh, yeah. I'm going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. No question about that. So, Corey, 2 weeks ago, a little bit over 2 weeks ago, the Predators got smoked 9-2 by the Dallas Stars. We were talking about trading everybody on the roster and the return that you could get for Saros and Carrier and all these free agents. And since then, they've rolled off 8 in a row in incredibly impressive fashion, including a big win against Colorado on Saturday, and find themselves, for the moment, firmly entrenched in a playoff spot. What do you make of this turnaround and the Predators' 8-game winning streak that has a chance to be extended to 9 tomorrow?
Remarkable. And I also say remarkable, you know, when we haven't talked about it, all 8 of these games have been in regulation. I mean, they haven't snuck any by. I mean, that was, you know, they've had back-to-back. I mean, what is the last 2 games? 11-2?
Yeah.
I mean, so they're played remarkably well, and they just seem to be picking up more confidence. You know, if there was a game for them to drop, it was Saturday. You know, they just won 7 in a row. You got 3 softer games coming up where you're looking like, okay, we need to get those 6 points. And Colorado's really good, so if we're going to drop one, this is it. Blah 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 blah. And then just go out and hammer them. So it's been remarkable, and it has changed my thinking some. You know, I wasn't for trading everyone because I didn't know how much capital they could get back, and my thing with trading people is you better have someone to replace them, usually. All right, and so like with Saros, I was good with it because you've got Askarov waiting to come up, and so you've got a replacement. So, you know, I was like, you can get something for Juice, and evidently they couldn't, because I think if they could have really gotten something for Juice, he probably would have been dealt before now. And so the deal wasn't good enough. But now, I mean, with the way they're playing, I mean, in the long run, I look at this roster and I still say they need more top 6 scoring. Okay, but I'm kind of at the point with 20 games to go, with how well they're playing, where I'm like, let's just ride it out and see what they can do. You know, I hate to say they've earned that, but you know, they just whacked Colorado at home. Let's just see what they can do. It's fun. I mean, and by the way, every home playoff game they get, they make a whole bunch of money.
Well, that's true. That kind of relates to what we just talked about. How about expanding the NHL playoffs, Corey? You for it? Expanding the NCAA tournament, NHL playoffs, et cetera, et cetera?
I am not for expanding the NHL playoffs.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, was that even a conversation?
It's unquestionably the right thing, according to John
Buccigross. It's going to happen. It's unquestionably the right thing.
Why? I mean, like half the teams in the playoffs. Already half the league makes the playoffs.
But there's money to be had.
Now? Like everybody's in.
I guess.
You could just cancel the regular season and start like a round of 11. Best of 11 in November, and that way you'll be done in June.
See, unquestionably. I mean, like, we keep asking this, and I think we're going to get the same answers.
I think we're going to get some more questions about it, yes, for sure. What about the Cody Glass part of this, Corey, with the hat trick and everything that, obviously it's been a struggle for Cody Glass this year, and the emotion on the bench with Kara Hammer after the game, just really cool to watch Saturday night.
Like I said, your time is coming now that you're a new parent and you're going to get older, and you just get softer, right? As you get older, unless you're Kaharski, then you just get more and more coarse.
Bitter.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it on Twitter. I had a monster road trip Saturday for girls soccer, so I didn't get to see the game. But I watched the video on Twitter the next morning, and I'm sitting in my bed crying. I mean, it is It was remarkable. And, the kid had 2 goals all year. And, to see the way the fans embraced him in that moment was remarkable. And, I know that everything that's been said about Colton Sisson's relationship with him and how he's worked hard and just kept kind of going. And, this is a kid who's had every reason to just go, I'm just not, it's just not happening for me. And to have that moment, with the team on this run, that was kind of the moment I threw up my hands and said, well, let's see what happens, because this is pretty special right now.
Speaking of special, I think is the combine over? I don't know. It's amazing, though. Just an amazing, amazing week of joy for sports
fans. Can I just say, am I the only person who doesn't love Indy? I don't understand.
Oh, you're not the only one.
Indy. What is there to love about Indy?
Well, I don't. I mean, it's fine. I think Indy's a good city. I mean, I've been to the NCAA tournament there a lot, and Big Ten tournament. I think it's a good event city. It's just like it's set up well. I mean, like are we better here? We, Nick Keyser. Yes, we are better here because we have a cooler city. But I think it's a good place. I just hate the combine. Let's move the combine around. It's a stupid combine.
Yeah, I don't care about moving the combine around. I think the central location should work for the teams. It should work for the kids. I mean, so if you want to keep it centrally located, say we're going to move it to Chicago, we're going to move it to St. Louis, we're going to move it to I don't care. I don't care. But I agree with you. It's the combine. They tried to make it a fan event. It's not that great of a fan event.
Look at the bench pressing. Ooh. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Any big takeaways by you from the whole thing? I mean, obviously, we were Xavier Worthy, 4-2-1.
Yeah, and along those lines, I think – we've all been, hemming and hawing over this tackle or wide receiver thing at 7 for the Titans, and I have too, because I mean you can make strong cases for both ways, but as I watch the combine and I analyze the players that are there, I start to feel more and more like they can get an elite tackle at 7 and still get a really good wide receiver at what do they pick 38. So I think that combination could pay off more for them than receiver and then tackle. But by just high end at both of those spots, like there's more high end stuff at receiver at 38, I think. But we'll see. I just the receiver crop to me looks to be really, really deep, and they could still add speed. I mean, we don't even talk about the Franklin kid from Oregon. I mean, that kid can run. And he could be there at 38. I mean, so there are dudes who could be there at 38. Now, look, if you think Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze is Justin Jefferson, I mean, you got to take him. So I mean, it's not really a question. But as I go up and down this roller coaster of which way to go, my coaster is now trending towards tackle.
What were your main takeaways from Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan at the combine last week?
That they're really nice to talk to, and I don't have to worry about feeling stupid for every question I ask.
That's good. It's a good takeaway.
No, well, this was one of them. I look, they both were prepared, and that was great. They both didn't hide the team's needs. For speed and playmakers and offensive line play. So, and the thing is, they gave away this, they gave away that. Did they? Or are they masking? You don't know. You don't know what game they're playing there. Because, Brian talked over and over again about, if it's even, I want the guy who scores touchdowns. And we talked about Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell, and then he stressed over and over again, which nobody's talking about, is that Bengals team was in a much different situation than this Titans team is right now, and was in a different phase of its development. And so, at this phase of their development, he may be saying, we just need guys who can block, because we don't have any. And, I don't think that's true, but because they need dudes. Without question, they need dudes. And so, it was interesting to get into that whole thing. The other thing that Brian said was when talking about the receivers is he said finding a couple of those guys. So it was interesting to think about, with their limited number of draft picks, could they take, 2 receivers in the first 4 rounds?
That is interesting. One thing that we now know, breaking news here on the program, Corey Curtis, Mike Evans signing a 2-year deal with Tampa Bay, so he is not going to make it free agency. So take one target off the board for the Tennessee Titans.
Wow. The Kansas City Chiefs going to have to play some defense again next year.
Looks like they are.
Corey, what are you doing with your hands? That's my last question for you.
What are you talking about, Joe?
What are you doing with your
Obviously, you miss Vrabel, so
I was. No, like I said, Vrabel's a good coach, and I'm not disparaging, but I mean, it was tough. It was tough, and you could ask questions, and gosh, I've had a million coaches give me a hard time. So, but it's just nice to just like whatever's on your mind, just roll with it, and just know you're going to get an answer back. It's just
It's a bit different. It's a bit different, yeah.
A bit. I mean, really. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 9.98 different.
Corey, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us, and we'll talk to you next week.
If you need, by the way, I have the first Kung Fu 1, 2, and 3 pandas on DVD. We can also get you a lot of the other dinosaur DVDs to you when your child is ready.
I'm just I respect the DVD. I still have a lot of DVDs too, so I thought me and you may be the only ones.
I got it.
Yeah, but my child's 11, so it was really before streaming became like the thing. So now I'm stuck with DVDs that I can't sell, so I got to try and pawn them off.
I may take you up on that. Appreciate you, Corey.
Later, guys.
See ya.
Corey Curtis from News 2, our guest. We'll react to Mike Evans signing back in Tampa Bay, what that means for the receiver market, and the Titans coming up next. Also get back into the Preds and their 8-game winning streak. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you. Thanks to Corey Curtis for being with us in the last segment. Mike Evans re-signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. According to Shefty, 2 years, $52 million for Evans, including $35 million guaranteed. So 2 years, $52, $35 guaranteed for Mike Evans. So take one free agent wide receiver target off the board. I'm not surprised, Joe. Like, I thought, he would probably end up back in Tampa Bay. And it sounds like, according to reports now, they're going to try to get Baker Mayfield locked down to a contract as well. So the reigning NFC South champions trying to bring back their wide receiver and then their quarterback.
Yeah, makes sense. I think that's a good deal on both sides. Short, but he still has – I think he's got a couple years in the tank for sure. And it's really interesting. Imagine a year ago projecting that Baker Mayfield, that the Bucs would be trying to, sign him to a somewhat substantial deal. But it's probably going to be a similar kind of thing with him, right? I don't know, maybe not, but like a 2-year middling money for quarterback is still very good, obviously.
Yeah.
He resurrected himself there for sure. I wasn't certain that they were going to sign up, but he was good. He was good last year for those. Even in like the playoff game, he wasn't the problem in that game. I think he made one really bad mistake.
Yeah.
But he's pretty good. So
just
pretty good can win the
Detroit Lions offense.
That's right. Well, they are good on offense. But the NFC South is there for the taking, and that's until Kirk Cousins goes to Atlanta.
They kick any field goals up there in Detroit? That's something they're working on?
I don't know. I think they should just –
Coach, it's 4th and 30. What do you want to do?
Well,
send out the offense.
It's like
Jared, go throw it.
Like that Alabama high school coach who never punts, right? Just do that. Why not?
Coach.
What would that look like in the NFL?
There's 3 seconds left. We're down by 2. We're on the 5-yard line. You want to kick? No. Go for the touchdown.
Just run around in the end zone. Throw it straight up in the air.
Oh, man. 615-737-1025. I saw Ben Arthur, a friend of the show, tweet this a couple of minutes ago. It says Calvin Ridley stock, and it just had the emoji of the stock market going way up. So apparently this Ben Arthur believes this is really good news for Calvin Ridley with Evans off the board.
Oh, gotcha.
Going that Ridley, the price may have just gone up for him in free agency. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
I'm staying away from that if I'm the Titans.
Yeah, although, again, I like the idea of like driving the price up or something like that. But, I don't know. Ridley is – there obviously are some questions about him, He's obviously very talented. So, but I think, just like Corey Curtis was saying there, like if the Titans choose correctly among their first 2 picks, then I think you're gonna end up with a very promising young player.
Yep.
And then how much would you then still need to supplement with previously with free agency?
Yep.
I don't know. Something, I think. But maybe not. I would see that. I would rather see the Titans put big money Chris Jones, I'm with you, Stilly. But if not, like a corner.
Right.
Well, whoever is there that you can get at corner, I think they really need a cornerback.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like we said, NFL free agency begins a week from Wednesday, the tampering period before then. So you're gonna start to see some things happening over the next few days here. And Mike Evans, kind of the first step of that, getting a 2-year deal with Tampa Bay, $52 million, $35 million guaranteed at signing. So big payday for Mike Evans. He returns to Tampa Bay, where every year of his career to this point, he's been a 1,000-yard receiver, which is pretty remarkable, given how long he's been in the league.
Yeah, he's a hell of a player.
No question about it. Preds win their 8th in a row on Saturday night, 5-1 against the Colorado Avalanche. A hat trick for Cody Glass. They're rolling right now. 8 wins in a row. They've beaten some good teams. Vegas has been hurt, so Vegas lost Mark Stone in the Preds game. Eichel's been hurt. So they've been struggling a little bit lately, but it's still a big win for the Preds on the road to kind of kick things off here after the St. Louis game on the road trip. But we talked about it heading into the game on Friday on the show. Of the 7-game winning streak at the time, 5 of them had been against teams that were not in the playoffs. So a big test for the Predators over the weekend against Colorado. Colorado had played really well in the 2 games prior to that. I was talking to their coach on Friday at practice. They feel great about kind of where they're at and the way that they're playing. Preds handled them. I thought it was a great hockey game for the first 2 periods. Back and forth, some good chances both ways. You know, McKinnon had some great looks that he created for himself in the first 2 periods. Scored on one of them. Saros made a huge save on him late in the second on a breakaway. And then in the third, for the 3rd consecutive game, Joe, Preds just slammed the door in the 3rd period. And that's been a kind of a bugaboo for them this year. They've given up some leads. The 3rd period, for the most part this year, has been their worst period of hockey. But during this winning streak, and specifically the last 3 games at home, they have been awesome in the 3rd period. And that is an encouraging development this time of year for sure, heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that's become a consistent thing with them. They bring their best the 3rd period. They've given up a fair amount of leads this year in the 3rd period. Had some dicey 3rd periods. So why are they playing like this in the 3rd period all of a sudden? Every time out.
You know, well, I would say the goaltending has stepped up, which it has. But, I mean, the thing is, in the 3rd period over these 3 games, he hadn't really been that busy. Like, Saros hadn't had to do a ton in the 3rd period. And, look, you know, Colorado got a couple of good looks in the 3rd period the other night. Minnesota got 1 or 2 in the 3rd period the game before. Ottawa did not get any earlier, literally any good looks in that game in the 3rd period. But, you know, Saros has been able there to close the door when he's needed to. But they've really just had the puck the whole time. Like, they had the puck the whole time in the 3rd period Saturday night for the most part. They've been really opportunistic. You know, Colton Sissons talked about it after the game, and, you know, the way that he basically described it was recently in the 3rd period, he feels like teams have been uninterested against them, of like they've worn them down to the point where they've been uninterested to do the things that are necessary to compete in the 3rd period. And, you know, how much of that is the opponent that they've had? Like, I think Ottawa for sure was second half of a back-to-back, and they've just been getting smoked recently. And I think there's some emotional things going on with them that they just are not handling well right now. Minnesota, they smoked. I mean, they came out in the 3rd period in a huge game, and they played great. Colorado was playing really good hockey for 40 minutes. I thought it was back and forth with the Predators, and then the Predators came out and smoked them. So what does it all mean? I don't know. I don't know why they've been able to flip the switch as quickly as they have in that 3rd period, but they're doing, I mean, up and down the lineup, all the little things that go into winning, they're doing at a pretty high level right now, all of them.
Yeah, I'd love to know, just what percentage of this or whatever is just like the system really clicking, you know? I mean, obviously they have recovered. They have elevated the energy and all the things that you need, all the intangibles that are universal in hockey or really in sports, right? Like since the Dallas loss. But how much of this also is like system clicking stuff? I mean, it has to be some, I think.
Well, I think it is some, but if I'm a Predators fan, I'm hoping that's what it is, because that to me is sustainable. Like the system, if this is as simple as they have finally figured out the system and everything that goes into it, not that you're going to win every game,
no,
but the way that you're playing is sustainable if that's what it is. And if things have started to click to the point where the system has become second nature and you're doing a little less thinking, a little bit more reacting out there, and you're able to play faster. I mean, that's really the thing that stood out to me Saturday, Joe. Like I was at Colorado practice Friday. I said this earlier in the show, and it just looked a little different. I was like, man, they're moving, and it's not just McKinnon. Like McKinnon is his own guy, and he's probably the most explosive player in the league, either him or McDavid. So you expect that from him, but the whole team was just moving, and I thought in the first period to kick things off, and at one point Colorado had a 7-1 shot advantage, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if the Preds are going to be able to keep up with them. And then they did. Like they turned it around and they skated with them, and it didn't look like, with the exception of McKinnon, that there was like some glaring speed advantage out there for Colorado. which I thought was good news for a team that moves really fast and plays with a good pace to them. I thought the Predators matched that pace. So if it is the system, to me, if I'm a Preds fan, that's a good thing because you can work with that if the system is clicked.
Yeah, it's not like the Preds are loaded with speed.
No.
So taking away time and space, executing that, having the puck. I mean, aggression. You can leave yourself vulnerable that way too. But if you do it the way it's designed, then it works in your favor.
615-737-1025. Preds have won 8 in a row. A hat trick for Cody Glass on Saturday night. We'll get into that and what that could mean for him moving forward as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts on the Preds, 615-737-1025, our phone number. I got some tickets to give away to see the Preds go for win number 9 in a row coming up tomorrow night at Bridgestone Arena, taking on the Montreal Canadiens. Got a trivia question for you that you must answer on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The text line, so don't call in. Preds have won 8 in a row. They have one other franchise winning streak of 8 games that was ended back in the 05-06 season, which I believe they began that season 8-0. So I think it was a winning streak to begin the season.
Wow.
Their franchise record for wins in a row is 10. Tell me what season that came. Which season did the Predators set their franchise record for 10 wins in a row? If you've been a Predators fan for a reasonable length of time, this should be pretty easy for you. The first person to correctly guess the answer on our text line will win a pair of tickets to see the Preds take on the Montreal Canadiens on Tuesday, March the 5th, which is tomorrow, at Bridgestone Arena. Nick Keyser manning the text line as we speak. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Nick's been a little fired up behind the glass today.
Yeah, Nick's been yelling at himself a lot, which is interesting. I mean, it's good. He's keeping himself active. Look at him. He doesn't even know we're talking about him right now. That's great.
He's yelling at you now.
Hey, speaking of, real quick, I want to throw this at you. Actually, maybe Nick can weigh in too if he wants to listen to the show. for the 5 minutes of the show that he'd like to listen to. So Stilly texted me Saturday and said, "You're a moron." And I said, "Okay, hi Stilly, how are you?"
Yeah, thanks for texting.
So this is the debate. So we had a deadline, best deadline trade. I know you put up some poll on his muted Twitter account. Best deadline trade of the past 10 years for the Preds. I put the Johansson trade number 1. Now that trade happened in January. To me, anything after the calendar flips, I know it's not right by the deadline, but I mean
I think I'm Team Stilly on this
Your
one.
Team Stilly?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the cutoff then? What's the cutoff for? Because some of these other ones that people had in there they aren't right up against the deadline.
I'll go within a month of the deadline.
Within a month?
Within a month of the deadline.
Okay.
Is that fair or is that unfair?
I mean, I obviously disagree. I mean, I asked before I did it, and I was like, yeah, it's fine. But
I don't think it's an egregious violation.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, two months is a while. I mean, but it's like I just feel like once you get to the new year and you've been well into the season, you kind of have a lay of the land that it's basically what it is.
I don't have a huge problem with what you're saying.
Okay. Well, I called Stilly a moron back, so we traded nasty texts.
That's good.
How about Keezer? Keezer, did you hear me? Are you listening?
Yeah, how much of a moron am I? I hear everything that you say, Joe.
Oh, he's fired up.
I didn't call you a moron.
Well, you're saying I'm not listening.
Okay. Okay, so you've listened.
What's your question?
What? I just said it. You said you were listening. Are you listening or are you not?
Well, Robert gave me something to do. So ask your question.
That's true, I did.
All right.
Robert.
Ryan, Tret, you got me all flustered here, Nick. My goodness. I don't know what to do with this
new emotion that you've never seen me have.
Yeah, this talking back Nick. I don't know what to do.
Nick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ryan Johansson trade was in January. I called it a deadline trade. Still, he called me a moron.
It was like early January, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like January 8th or something like that.
It's not a deadline deal.
Ooh, keys are
All right,
strong.
That's fine. All right,
why would that be a deadline deal?
My argument is basically once the calendar flips.
Okay.
I mean, the season is well underway. You kind of have a lay of the land.
Yeah.
And it was.
I think at the time you could classify it as because David Poile was trying to make a splash, and maybe he thought that was the time and place to make a deal like that because the Blue Jackets were going to try to move him anyway. I mean, I see your argument. I just don't agree with it fully that it would be classified as that. At the time, I think that would be a great move to kind of say, this season, this was the biggest move. Because Nashville didn't really do anything else after that, right? I can't recall.
That was their big move.
Yeah, that was about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that was their move. When, of course, helped them win a playoff series, and then the next year helped them a lot. That's fine. I mean, the Athletics let me do it. I guess we're morons. Fine. I mean, I think there's probably a middle ground between I disagree with that and you're a moron, but people don't understand. Stilly behind the scenes, he's ruthless, man. He is ruthless.
Just keeps it going. Yeah, he was texting me at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning about whether or not the Titans should sign A.J. Dillon. I was like, no, shut up.
Leave me alone. God, Jared.
So the Preds have won 8 in a row. The deadline is this Friday, speaking of the deadline. So it is decision week for Barry Trotz and the Preds and the rest of the league. It's fascinating this week. It's fascinating from, I think, a different point of view. This time 2 weeks ago, I thought it was going to be a very interesting week to see who got sold off and how much churning Barry Trotz was willing to do at the deadline. And I guess it's changed now from the standpoint of I don't expect a ton to happen for the Preds this week. Jeff Merrick put it out there yesterday to keep an eye on the Alex Carrier situation. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. And he talked about Spencer Stasny and the Predators kind of loving him. And I've heard some similar things behind the scenes of they love Spencer Stasny, and he's ready to be in the NHL, and they got to find a spot for him to be in the NHL. So I would assume, regardless of what they do at the deadline, that at some point Spencer Stasny is probably going to be up here and is going to be playing with them. So is that because there's been a spot created for him at the deadline, or is that just because they bring him up and start to play him over somebody that's already in the lineup? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But there's that to keep an eye on. There's the Novak situation. Elliot Friedman reported on Saturday that the Preds and Novak are closing in on a deal. So it sounds like there could be a Tommy Novak deal at some point this week. We'll see what happens on that front. And then, of course, the UC Saros stuff still kind of on the back burner in terms of, is there going to be somebody that comes out of nowhere with a huge offer this week? If so, is Barry Trotz willing to listen to that offer with them on the middle of an 8th-game winning streak? And you look at who that could be. Like Jersey is slowly falling out of this thing. They're not completely out of it yet, but they had a bad weekend, and that was, I said it on Friday. Like if you're still in the trade UC Saros camp, you're probably pulling for Jersey to win a couple of games, like 6-5, and be like, man, if we had a goalie, we'd be really good right now. They totally screwed it up this weekend.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, there's Devils fans are calling for Lindy Ruff to be fired and for people to start selling at the deadline. So we'll see what happens there. The Carolina part of this, Carolina's been on a roll. They're playing really well. I don't know if they're going to mix things up to the level that would be required to get UC Saros. Are they willing to pay that price right now? Probably not. LA, you're in direct competition with a playoff spot with. And then there's the Edmonton part of this where Ken Holland has said that he's not getting into the goalie market. So the options appear to be limited on the UC Saros front right now.
Maybe Holland and Trotz are both lying, and they're
Maybe.
actually working on a deal right now.
Maybe.
We don't know. Speaking of the Devils real quick, Devils Twitter got a hold of my brunette story last week. Oh, boy.
A lot of stuff about Lindy Ruff.
Yeah, exactly. We should have kept Bruno. Yes, there's a lot of that going on there.
See that.
Yep. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that him leaving is like their issue, but he did seem to have a positive effect on them that isn't there now. So
he did, no question about that. I'm just glad that we have. I haven't heard a whole lot of Predators fans talking about firing Andrew Burnett the last 2 weeks. It's been a nice, refreshing change of pace after what we saw against Dallas.
I saw you tweet about that the other day, and it's like, I mean, it really had to be like 2 idiots, right?
It was more than 2, but it was, I think, a relatively small number.
Was it a Preds Facebook? It was actually on.
Oh, it was on Twitter.
But then again, Twitter is like everything I tweet now is liked by 8 like quote unquote models with fake pictures. So I don't even know what's going on with Twitter anymore.
Yeah, where's that? Rob on the text line asking about Tyson Barrie. I mean, I would assume if somebody wants him, they can have him this week. I think is basically what that's going to look like. I mean, if you're the Preds, I mean, could you get back like a 6th for Tyson Barrie at this point?
I mean, he'll get moved, right? He'll get moved for something.
I think.
It just will be very.
I mean, like I said, if somebody wants him this week, they can have him.
Yeah.
That's how that's going to go. I think Barry Trotz has been trying to move him for a while.
It's kind of.
And it hasn't worked.
I have to think.
He's
got enough skill. What's that?
It's the contract.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's been willing to take on the money that goes along with it.
What about retaining some? If you get a decent return back, if you get like a third.
Yeah, I'd retain some if you get a decent pick back.
Yeah.
I mean, his contract's up at the end of the year anyway. So, yeah, I'd
not
do
that much. Yeah. By the way, Raymond and Franklin says New Michelle can get pretty sassy, LOL. I like that we're still calling Nick New Michelle.
So, hey, I just got a text from Kristen. She was listening, and she said, I'm pretty cranky this morning.
Oh, so she's on my side.
Woo!
Thank you. I don't know what's going on. He's been in there yelling at himself today.
Yes.
Like he just like randomly blurts out words.
Keezer's ready for trade deadline week. There's an intensity that Keezer's bringing to the table this morning, which I appreciate. I like it.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is it trading
deadline
week excitement?
No, not really. No.
What's going on with you? What's happening? You can tell us.
Just a long weekend, I guess. Okay. I don't know. It's been fun. I mean, last night was a late night for sure, but
lack of sleep?
I enjoyed it. Maybe partly, yeah.
Why was last night a late night?
I went to Nash Vegas.
Nash Vegas.
Oh, right. Oh, that's right.
That was fun, though.
You are always working, man.
I am, yes.
Calm down, New Michelle.
Oh, man.
New Michelle.
At least I'm not. That's
what you were calling.
You're gonna be New Michelle until 2030.
At least I don't say go Titans.
Now Michelle's getting shots.
Strays.
Love you, Michelle, but that is one for sure.
When is she starting with
I think she already started.
She started already?
She started last week.
Oh, well, crap. I totally missed that.
I think it was last week, maybe the week before.
We
might have to get old Michelle on at some point here.
Old Michelle and new Michelle. Take your thoughts on the Preds, 615-737-1025. Preds going for win number 9 in a row tomorrow. Final thoughts on the Preds, their win against the Avalanche on Saturday, and what this could mean for them. Could they make things interesting here from a playoff perspective? We'll take your thoughts on that as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. back in. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you. We are live from our 102.5 The Game studios, brought to you by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. Preds going for win number 9 in a row tomorrow against the Montreal Canadiens. So standings update, Preds are 7 points up on Calgary and the St. Louis Blues for the final playoff spot. They're tied points-wise with the Kings for the first wild card. Kings have played in 2 less games, so Kings with some games in hand. Preds are in a good spot right now. St. Louis did win over the weekend, but Preds keep pace with them. Calgary got a come-from-behind win, and they've started to trade people off. So I would assume at some point they're going to fall off. Now, having said that, Predators trade people off last year, and they actually moved up. So
that's right.
We'll see what happens on that front. But Preds are sitting in a good spot with 20 games left. They got 20 games coming up, 2 more at home on this homestand. They got a back-to-back coming up this weekend on the road in Columbus, and then another big one against the Minnesota Wild. How are we feeling about what they could be playoff-wise? If they finish this off and they get there and they're able to get in the playoffs, probably as a wild card, either wild card 1 or wild card 2, which means you would be taking on either Winnipeg, Dallas, or likely Vancouver. One of those 3 is probably your likely opponent if you get a wild card spot. Edmonton has an outside chance to catch Vancouver, and Colorado, there's a chance they could pass Winnipeg and Dallas, but Winnipeg, Dallas, and Vancouver are your most likely opponents. How are we feeling about matchups against those 3 if that's the way things end up going?
I mean, you asked today, and it's like, not terrible.
Yeah.
Are they going to keep playing like this? Is this what they are? Are they going to, like this week, think of like this whole season, it's like, a quote-unquote manageable little stretch at home. Sounds good, and it's not been good for them. They're going to close this out and make it 10 in a row, a 5-game road swing and a 5-game homestand and win it all? Not win it all, win them all.
Yeah.
The way they're playing right now, and you said earlier the Saros numbers, that's not the only story with that. I don't think it's just like he was playing poorly and now he's playing amazing, but it's all working to create absolutely elite goaltending numbers. So we know how good he is, and I've always thought with this team, and I know the Preds have not won a playoff series since 2017, but since Saros kind of elevated and became one of the best goaltenders in the NHL, I've always thought you get this team in a playoff series, and that's how you can close the gap.
Well, right now they're scoring over 4 goals a game. Throughout this 8-game streak, they've scored at least 4 goals every time. So when you're scoring that much, you're going to put yourself in a good position to win anyway. When you factor in that you're scoring that much and your goalie's playing as well as he's playing, well, that's why you've won 8 games in a row. When you've got those 2 things going, you're a hard team to beat when those things are happening. The scoring at some point from a secondary scoring perspective is probably going to regress back a little bit. Maybe. Maybe it is. Like that goes back to what you were talking about earlier, though. If it is as simple as it's the systems and they figured it out, Novak has come alive here. I think Novak is gifted offensively, and he's putting the puck in the back of the net, so that's good to see. The Glass hat trick was really cool on Saturday night, and it was an emotional night, and I thought the scene after the game with him was awesome. He's a great kid. It was good to see things go well for him after the year he's had. I do think he is a guy, though, that, sometimes when it's not going well, I think it really affects him and the way that he plays. So now that he's seen a game like that go well for him and the puck go in the net, could it have the opposite effect? Like, could this springboard him into a really nice close to the season? Like, his game, it's been building, and I'm not saying I saw a hat trick coming, but you've seen him being involved in the play a little bit more recently. So now that he has kind of a breakout performance, what does that mean for him down the stretch here? So I guess that's a long way of me asking is the secondary scoring that we've seen over this 8-game stretch, is it maybe a little bit more sustainable than some people would think?
Well, Glass and Novak both have had injury stuff, so keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
So I think health is part of what we're seeing there as well. Get Evangelista going a little bit. That line, and then you get they have, as you said earlier in the show, they got a top line and then they've got other lines.
Right.
But right now, like he's able to just roll the lines because they're all actually doing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how sustainable it is. I agree. Like, however systemic it is the more the better. And like someone texted, it's like it looks like they're just they're really causing trouble in the neutral zone. I mean, that's the thing. It's aggression. It's taking time and space away. It's being precise with that. It's being connected with that. Knowing where you're supposed to be, where everybody's going to be, and then you turn over pucks and you get yourself odd man rushes and you create more offense.
Well, that's the thing, and they're turning over pucks, and you could see like the stretch passes, which sometimes they've gotten themselves into trouble with that this year. But the stretch passes of making a 90-foot pass there or a 100-foot pass here with the forwards getting up ice as quick as they can, they've caught some teams the last couple of games. They've created odd man rushes by doing that. McDonough has made a few unbelievable passes from his own end up the ice. Obviously, Yossi has. Fabro made a great one the other day too. That was probably about 110 feet right on the tape to set up an odd man rush chance. So like that part of the system, you can see it. Like it's the forwards. As soon as there's a chance that the defenseman has the puck, the forwards are going. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But they're stretching teams out through the neutral zone right now, and it's causing those teams some problems.
And as we talked about last week, Yossi took some time, very different kind of way to play for him, but
he's playing great.
He's just too he's going to figure it out, and so he's playing at a high level. I did want to mention Keith. Keith said, I'm so glad you said that about the models. I was afraid I've been doing something I shouldn't have. A lot of sketchy people follow me. Yes, Keith, it is universal, my friend. Don't worry. You're fine. Just nude in bio.
a lot
all
of
over the place.
things going on when you tweet right now. Like, oh.
It's not.
A lot of people have liked this tweet. Oh. None of them are real.
I got a lot of engagement on this one.
A lot of replies. Oh, okay.
Fire brunette, nude in bio.
That does it for us today here on the program. Jason Big Joe is coming up next. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.